That baby is the only thing standing between us and everything we deserve." Stephanie Ashford's voice sliced through the mansion like a surgical blade. Her husband Bradley grabbed her wrist, pulling her closer. "Then we make sure he stops breathing. Permanently." Stephanie smiled that cold reptilian smile that never reached her eyes. "The monitor will be off tonight. By morning it will look like Sid's, tragic, unavoidable, and will be $50 million richer." 3 feet away, hidden behind a marble column, Denise Williams pressed both hands over her mouth. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought they might hear it. The maid they had never bothered to notice had just heard everything. And upstairs, in that beautiful nursery, a 3-month-old baby slept peacefully, not knowing his own family had just signed his death warrant. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments below, because I love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. And if you want to know how one invisible woman took down an empire built on blood and lies, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end. Trust me, what happens next will keep you up at night. The baby wasn't breathing. Denise Williams had seen death before. She had held her husband's hand when cancer stole him away 12 years ago. She had watched her mother take her last breath in a hospital room that smelled like bleach and broken dreams. She had buried too many people she loved in that small cemetery in Savannah where the Spanish moss hung heavy and hope hung heavier. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared her for the silence in that nursery. She had arrived at the Ashford estate at 5 a.m. like always. Badge scanned, head down, invisible. That's how it worked when you were black and poor in a house full of white and wealthy. You moved like a ghost. You cleaned like a machine. You existed in the spaces between their perfect lives without ever being seen. 7 months of this routine. 7 months of mopping their marble floors and scrubbing their golden toilets and pretending she didn't hear the arguments behind closed doors. But this morning was different. This morning at 6:47 a.m., the nursery was silent. Baby Marcus always fussed at 6. Every single morning, like clockwork, his tiny cries would echo through the hallways. The staff joked about it. The nannies complained about it. It was as reliable as sunrise. Today, there was nothing. Denise stopped mopping. Her hands, rough from 42 years of hard labor, went still on the wooden handle. "That ain't right," she whispered. She left her mop in the hallway and walked toward the nursery. Her worn sneakers made no sound on the polished floor. 7 months of being invisible had taught her how to move like smoke. The door was open. Just a crack. She pushed it wider. The nursery was magazine perfect. Gray walls, white furniture, a crib that cost more than Denise made in 4 months. Stuffed animals lined up like soldiers. A mobile spinning slowly, playing a lullaby to empty air. Marcus lay on his back. Still. Blue. "Oh, Jesus. Oh, sweet Jesus, no." Denise crossed the room in 3 steps. She looked down into that crib, and her whole world stopped. 3 months old. Dark hair like his dead daddy. Delicate features like his broken mama. The heir to a $1 billion empire. And he wasn't breathing. She scooped him up. His body was limp. His head fell back. His tiny chest didn't move. "Come on, baby, come on, come on, come on." She tilted his head, cleared his airway, pressed her lips to his tiny mouth. Her grandmother's voice thundered in her mind, lessons taught 30 years ago in a cramped kitchen in Georgia after the neighbor's baby almost died. Breathe. Gentle. He's so small. 1 breath. Nothing. 2 breaths. Nothing. She laid him on the changing table, pressed her fingers to his sternum. Compressions. Light. Careful. A baby's ribs are like wishbones. Push too hard and you break them. Don't push hard enough and they die. Please, Lord, please, not this baby, not today, please. 3 breaths. 4. Press, breathe, press, breathe. Her tears fell on his face. She didn't wipe them, couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. 5 breaths. 6. Breathe for me, Marcus. Come on, sweetheart. Breathe for me. 7 breaths. And then a gasp, a shudder, a tiny chest heaving back to life. Marcus screamed, that beautiful, furious, miraculous sound of a baby who was alive. Denise pulled him against her chest and sobbed. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the changing table to keep from falling. Her whole body shook with relief and terror and something else she couldn't name. "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, thank you, thank you." She held him for 3 full minutes, rocking, humming, crying. His heart beat against hers. Both racing, both surviving. When she could finally think again, her eyes went to the baby monitor. It sat on the dresser, top of the line. Connected to Victoria's phone, the nanny's phone, every device in the house. One whimper from Marcus and 3 alarms would sound. The green light was dark. Denise walked over, still clutching the baby. She picked up the monitor with her free hand. Off, not unplugged, not glitching, deliberately switched off. "No, she breathed. "That's not possible." Victoria checked this monitor obsessively. The last nanny got fired for forgetting to turn it on just once. There was no way, no possible way this was an accident. Someone had come into this room. Someone had walked past the crib where this baby slept. Someone had deliberately disabled the only thing that could save him. And then they had left him to die. The nursery door flew open. Denise spun around, her arm tightening around Marcus. Stephanie Ashford stood in the doorway. Blonde, beautiful, cold as a Connecticut winter. Designer yoga clothes that cost more than Denise's monthly rent. A face that could have been carved from marble. But her eyes, something flickered in her eyes. There and gone in half a second. Disappointment. "What are you doing in here?" Stephanie's voice was sharp. "Why are you holding the baby?" Denise's mind raced. Rich white woman finds black maid holding the baby. She knew how this worked. She was automatically suspicious, automatically wrong, automatically the problem. But she couldn't lie. Not about this. "He wasn't breathing." Her voice shook. "I found him not breathing. I did CPR. He's okay now." Stephanie's eyes flicked to the dresser. To the monitor, back to Denise. "The monitor was off," Denise added. "Completely off." Something shifted in Stephanie's face. A tightening around the mouth. A hardening in the eyes. "You must be confused." "I'm not confused, ma'am. It was off. Someone turned it off." Stephanie crossed the room with long strides. She took Marcus from Denise's arms, not gently, not lovingly, but efficiently, like picking up a package. She bounced him absently, her eyes never leaving Denise's face. "These monitors glitch constantly. The lights malfunction. I'm sure it was on. You just couldn't tell." She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Technology is so unreliable." "Ma'am, I know what I saw." Stephanie stopped bouncing the baby. Her smile disappeared. "Do you?" The word hung in the air like a threat. "Mrs. Williams, isn't it Denise Williams?" Stephanie tilted her head. "You've been with us 7 months now. Good job. Steady hours. Nice paycheck. Must be important to you. A woman in your situation." Denise felt the ice spreading through her veins. "What situation is that?" "You know." Stephanie shrugged. "Single mother, daughter back in Georgia, bills to pay, people depending on you." She paused. "It would be terrible to lose all that over a misunderstanding about a baby monitor." There it was, the threat wrapped in silk. "I'm not misunderstanding anything." "I think you are." Stephanie's voice dropped lower. "I think you had a scary morning. I think you're confused about what you saw. And I think you're going to go back to work now and forget this ever happened. Because if you don't..." She let the sentence hang. "If I don't..." Stephanie smiled again, and this time it was pure predator. "Let's just say there are a lot of cleaning ladies in Connecticut. You're not special. You're not irreplaceable. You're not even particularly good at your job." She glanced down at Marcus, then back up at Denise. "But you did help today. So I'll give you one chance. Walk away. Keep your mouth shut, and maybe, just maybe, you'll still have a job next week." Denise stood there, every instinct screaming at her to fight back. But she had been black in America for 42 years. She knew when she was outgunned. "Yes, ma'am," she said quietly. "I understand." "Good." Stephanie turned toward the door. "I knew you were smart. Smart women know when to let things go." She walked out with Marcus already pulling out her phone, already dialing Victoria. Her voice drifted back down the hallway, explaining that there had been a small emergency. Nothing serious, the cleaning lady helped. Everything was fine now. Everything was fine. Denise stood alone in that nursery, her heart slamming against her ribs, her hands trembling at her sides. Everything was not fine. She looked at the baby monitor again. Stephanie had turned it back on when Denise wasn't watching. The green light glowed steadily, innocently, like it had never been dark. But Denise knew what she had seen. She pulled out her phone, that old cracked smartphone she couldn't afford to replace, and took a photo of the monitor. Then she turned slowly, looking at every corner of the room. The medication bottles on the shelf, the position of the changing table, the angle of the security camera in the corner. The security camera. Denise's breath caught. If there was a camera, there was footage. Someone had turned off that monitor, and the camera might have caught them doing it. But who controlled the cameras? Who could she trust with what she knew? Nobody. That was the answer. In this house, she couldn't trust anybody. She left the nursery and walked back to her cleaning cart. Her mop was where she'd left it. The water in the bucket had gone cold. Everything looked normal. Nothing was normal. At 9 a.m., Denise was mopping the first-floor hallway when she saw Sophie, the new nanny, come down the stairs with Marcus in her arms. Sophie was 24, Danish beautiful in that cold Nordic way. She had perfect credentials and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Sophie walked right past Denise without acknowledging her existence. Then she stopped, turned back, looked at Denise with an expression that made Denise's skin crawl. "You're the one who found him this morning?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." Sophie tilted her head, studying Denise like she was an interesting insect. "Mrs. Ashford told me. She said you did CPR." "I did." "Where did you learn that CPR on an infant?" Denise gripped her mop tighter. "My grandmother taught me, back in Georgia." Sophie nodded slowly. "Interesting. Most cleaning ladies don't know infant CPR." She paused. "Most cleaning ladies would have just called for help." "There wasn't time." "No." Sophie's eyes narrowed slightly. "I suppose there wasn't." She turned and walked away, Marcus gurgling happily in her arms, completely unaware of the danger he was in. Denise watched her go. Something about that conversation felt wrong, like a test, like Sophie was trying to figure out how much Denise knew how much she had seen. Was Sophie involved? Was everyone in this house part of it? At 10:30, Denise was cleaning the second-floor bathroom when she heard voices from the hallway. Bradley Ashford's voice tight with frustration and Victoria's voice quiet and tired. "Don't understand why you're questioning the will again, Bradley. Jonathan made his wishes very clear." His wishes were insane, leaving everything to a baby Victoria. He can't run a company, he can't make decisions, he can't do anything except cry and sleep. That's why I'm managing things until he comes of age. "You?" Bradley's laugh was ugly. "You can barely manage to get out of bed in the morning. The board is losing confidence. Investors are pulling out. Everything Jonathan built is crumbling because you're too busy crying over a dead man to actually lead." Victoria's voice broke. "He was my husband, Bradley. He was your brother." "He was a selfish bastard who couldn't stand the thought of me having anything. Not the company, not the inheritance, not even the respect of our own father." Bradley's voice rose. 40 years I waited. 40 years I watched him get everything while I got scraps. And now he's dead and I'm still getting scraps because he left it all to a baby who can't even hold his own head up." "Bradley, do you know what happens if that baby dies, Victoria? Do you—" Silence. Denise pressed herself against the wall, hardly breathing. "Everything comes to you," Bradley continued. "All of it. And if something happens to you, or if you're deemed unfit to manage things, it goes to you." "Finally, something that should have been mine from the beginning?" "Are you threatening me, Bradley?" "I'm educating you. This family has secrets, Victoria. Secrets that could destroy you if they came out. Jonathan knew them. I know them. And now you're going to start listening to me, or I swear to God, I'll make sure the whole world knows exactly what kind of man your precious husband really was." Footsteps, coming closer. Denise grabbed her cleaning supplies and ducked into the bathroom, easing the door almost shut. Through the crack, she watched Bradley storm past, his face twisted with rage. Victoria followed a moment later, her cheeks wet with tears, her whole body shaking. When they were gone, Denise let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. So Bradley wanted the baby dead. He had just admitted it, practically spelled it out. But what about Victoria? Was she in danger too, or was she part of it? Denise didn't know. She didn't know anything anymore except that a 3-month-old baby was surrounded by people who wanted him gone. And she was the only one who seemed to care. At noon, Denise took her lunch break in the staff kitchen. She sat alone at the small table in the corner, eating the rice and beans she had packed from home, her mind spinning. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then breathing. Slow, deliberate. Like someone wanted her to know they were there. "Hello, who is this?" Click. The line went dead. Denise stared at her phone. Her hand was shaking. It could be nothing. A wrong number. A prank. But she didn't believe that. Not after what she had heard. Not after what she had seen. Someone knew she was watching. Someone was watching her back. At 2 p.m., Denise was summoned to Victoria's office. She had expected this. Stephanie would have told Victoria her version of the story. Now Denise would hear the official line, the party talking points, the carefully constructed narrative that would make everything neat and tidy and wrong. Victoria sat behind a desk that probably cost more than a car. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling. A woman drowning in grief and barely keeping her head above water. "Mrs. Williams, please sit down." Denise sat. "I understand there was an incident this morning with my son." "Yes, ma'am. He stopped breathing. I performed CPR. He's okay now." Victoria closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. "Stephanie told me. She said you saved his life." "I just did what anyone would do." "No." Victoria shook her head. "Not anyone. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have frozen. You knew exactly what to do." She paused. "Thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough." "You don't have to thank me, ma'am. I'm just glad he's okay." Victoria nodded. She picked up a pen and started turning it over in her fingers around and around, a nervous habit. "Mrs. Williams, Stephanie mentioned that you were confused about the baby monitor, that you thought it was off." Here it comes, Denise thought. "I wasn't confused, ma'am. The monitor was off, completely off. Someone turned it off." Victoria's hand stopped moving. The pen fell to the desk. "That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth. You're saying someone in my house deliberately disabled the monitor while my son was sleeping. You're saying someone wanted him to..." Victoria couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm saying what I saw, what I know. That monitor was off. Your son almost died, and I don't think it was an accident." Victoria stood up abruptly and walked to the window. She stood with her back to Denise, her shoulders hunched, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "Do you have any idea what you're suggesting? Do you have any proof? Not yet, but..." "My husband died 6 months ago." Victoria's voice cracked. "My whole world collapsed. I have a company I don't know how to run, a baby I don't know how to raise, and a family that wants to tear itself apart over money and power." She turned around. "I can't afford to believe that someone in my own home is trying to kill my child. I can't. Do you understand?" Denise saw it then. The fear underneath the denial. Victoria wasn't stupid. She knew something was wrong. But she was too broken, too overwhelmed, too alone to face it. "Ma'am, with all due respect, whether you can afford to believe it or not, it's happening. And if nobody does anything, they'll try again. And next time, I might not be there." Victoria flinched like Denise had slapped her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The clock on the wall ticked. The air conditioner hummed. Outside, gardeners trimmed hedges that cost more to maintain than most people's houses. "There's a bonus in your next paycheck," Victoria said finally. "A significant one, for what you did this morning." She walked back to her desk and sat down, not meeting Denise's eyes. "Go back to work, Mrs. Williams, and please, keep what happened this morning to yourself. I don't want rumors spreading." It was a dismissal, a door slamming shut, but Denise saw something else too. A crack. A tiny fracture in Victoria's wall. She wasn't part of it. She was a victim too. A woman surrounded by wolves pretending she didn't hear them howling. "Ma'am?" Denise stood up. "I raised my daughter alone after my husband died. I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning. I know what it's like to not know who to trust." She paused at the door. "If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who sees more than people think, I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Victoria didn't respond. But her eyes met Denise's for just a second, and in that second, Denise saw something that looked almost like hope. She left the office and closed the door behind her. Victoria wasn't going to help, not yet, which meant Denise was on her own. At 4 p.m., Denise was cleaning Bradley's home office. She wasn't supposed to be in there. The office was off limits to cleaning staff. But she had seen Bradley leave for a meeting 20 minutes ago, and something told her she needed to look. She moved quickly, her eyes scanning everything. Desk, bookshelves, filing cabinet. A folder caught her eye. Tucked behind a row of law books on the top shelf, barely visible unless you were looking for it. Denise pulled it out and opened it. Documents about Jonathan Ashford's will. Pages and pages, covered in Bradley's handwriting. Numbers circled in red. Words underlined so hard the pen had torn through the paper. Unfair. Should have been mine. Change this. And on the last page, a handwritten note. If Marcus dies before age 25, all assets transfer to Victoria. If Victoria is deemed mentally unfit or unable to manage, control passes to next of kin. Me. Denise's hands shook as she took photos of every page. The camera clicked softly in the silent room. This was it. The motive. The plan. Marcus was worth more dead than alive to his own uncle. She was so focused on the documents that she didn't hear the footsteps until they were right outside the door. "What are you doing in here?" Denise spun around, shoving her phone in her pocket. Stephanie stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes like chips of ice. "I asked you a question. What are you doing in my husband's office?" "I was just..." Denise's mind raced. "I was told to clean every room today. I must have misunderstood. I'm so sorry." Stephanie didn't move. Her eyes went to the bookshelf, to the spot where the folder had been. Back to Denise. "That shelf looks dusty. Have you cleaned it?" "Not yet, ma'am. I was just about to." Stephanie walked into the room, slowly, deliberately. She stopped inches from Denise, close enough that Denise could smell her perfume, something expensive, something cold. "You know what I think, Denise?" Stephanie's voice was soft. "I think you're not as stupid as you look. I think you see things. I think you hear things. I think you're the kind of woman who pays attention." Denise said nothing. "That can be dangerous." Stephanie reached out and adjusted Denise's collar, a gesture that was somehow more threatening than a slap. "Women who pay too much attention in this house tend to have accidents, car trouble, immigration problems, family emergencies back home that require immediate travel." "Is that a threat, ma'am?" Stephanie smiled. "It's advice from someone who's been in this family a lot longer than you." She stepped back. "Finish cleaning, and then stay out of rooms you don't belong in." She walked out. Denise stood frozen, her heart hammering her hand, trembling. She waited until Stephanie's footsteps faded, then grabbed her cleaning supplies and left the office. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and forced herself to breathe. They knew. They knew she was watching. And they were warning her. But she had photos now. Evidence. Not enough to go to the police, maybe, but enough to prove she wasn't crazy. At 6 p.m., Denise's shift ended. She gathered her things and headed for the service entrance, her whole body tight with tension. The parking lot was almost empty. Her old Honda sat alone under a flickering streetlight. She was halfway to the car when she saw it. Her front tire, slashed, not flat, not punctured by a nail, cut, deliberately. The rubber peeled back like someone had taken a knife to it. Denise stopped walking. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a message. She looked around the parking lot. Empty. The mansion loomed behind her windows, glowing with warm light. Someone in there was watching her right now. Someone was laughing. She pulled out her phone to call for help, and that's when she noticed the text message. Unknown number. 3 words. Mind your business. Denise stared at the message. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. They were coming after her. They weren't even being subtle about it anymore. They wanted her scared. They wanted her silent. They wanted her gone. And the terrifying part was, it was working. She was scared. More scared than she had been since the night her husband died, and she realized she was alone in the world with a 4-year-old daughter and no money and no plan. But fear wasn't the same as surrender. She called a tow truck. She waited in the cold November air, and she thought about Marcus's face when he wasn't breathing, about the weight of his small body in her arms, about the sound he made when he started breathing again. That sound, that beautiful, impossible, miraculous sound. She couldn't walk away. Even if they threatened her, even if they scared her, even if they destroyed her. Some things were bigger than fear. The tow truck came. She rode home in silence, staring out the window at the lights of Greenwich sliding past. In her tiny apartment that night, Denise sat on her bed and called her daughter. Maya answered on the 3rd ring. "Mama, I wasn't expecting you. Is everything okay?" The sound of her voice made Denise want to cry. "Everything's fine, baby. I just needed to hear your voice." "You sound tired. You sound different." "Long day." "Mama." Maya's voice was gentle but firm. "What happened?" So Denise told her, not everything, but enough. A baby in danger, a family hiding evil, a choice between safety and doing what was right. When she finished, Maya was quiet for a moment. "Do you remember what you told me when I was 12? Maya asked. "When those girls at school were bullying Tanya Morris and everyone was too scared to say anything." Denise remembered. She remembered holding Maya's hand on the edge of her bed, trying to explain why courage mattered even when it cost you something. "I told you that silence is a choice, that when you see something wrong and you don't speak up, you're choosing to let it happen. And what did you tell me to do?" Denise's throat tightened. "I told you to speak up, even if it's hard, even if it hurts. Mama, you raised me to be brave. How can I be that person if you're not?" Tears slid down Denise's cheeks. "I'm scared, baby." "I know, but that baby needs you, and you're the strongest person I know." After she hung up, Denise sat in the darkness for a long time. She thought about her grandmother who had cleaned houses for 50 years and never once backed down from what was right. She thought about her mother who had worked herself to death trying to give Denise a better life. She thought about Maya waiting in Georgia believing in her. And she thought about Marcus, 3 months old, helpless, surrounded by monsters. "Okay," she whispered to the empty room. "Okay, then I fight." She pulled out her phone and looked at the photos she had taken. The monitor. The documents. Bradley's handwriting. Not enough. She needed more. She needed proof that no one could ignore. But how? She was just a maid. She had no power, no connections, no resources. She was invisible. Invisible. The word echoed in her mind. They thought she was invisible. They thought she was furniture. They talked in front of her like she wasn't even there. What if she used that? What if being invisible was the one advantage she had? She could go places they didn't expect. See things they didn't hide. Hear things they didn't guard. She could watch them. Document them. Build a case piece by piece until she had something undeniable. It was dangerous. It was probably crazy. It would definitely get her killed if they caught her, but Marcus was worth it. That baby's life was worth the risk. Denise got up from her bed and walked to the window. Outside, the city hummed with life. Cars passed. People walked dogs. Normal life happening like there wasn't a conspiracy to murder a baby happening in one of Connecticut's richest mansions. She looked at her reflection in the glass. A 42-year-old black woman with tired eyes and rough hands and a uniform that made her invisible. "You don't see me," she said quietly. "None of you see me, but I see you. I see everything." She turned away from the window. Tomorrow she would go back to that mansion. She would mop their floors and clean their bathrooms and smile and nod and be invisible, but she would also be watching, listening, waiting. And when she had what she needed, she would make sure everyone saw the truth, even if it cost her everything. The next morning, Denise arrived at the Ashford estate at 4:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. The security guard barely glanced at her badge. She walked through the empty halls, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The house felt different at this hour. Darker. More dangerous. She went to the nursery first. Marcus was asleep in his crib, his tiny chest rising and falling steadily. The monitor glowed green. Everything looked peaceful. But Denise saw the shadows now. She saw the danger lurking behind every expensive piece of furniture, hiding in every perfectly decorated corner. "I'm here," she whispered to the sleeping baby. "I'm watching. They won't hurt you, I promise." She touched his small hand. His fingers curled around hers even in sleep. That grip, that trust. "I promise," she said again. She left the nursery and got to work. There was mopping to do, bathrooms to clean, evidence to gather. The war had begun, and Denise Williams, the invisible maid, was ready to fight. At 7:15 a.m., Bradley came downstairs for breakfast. He stopped outside the nursery like he did every morning, standing in the doorway for exactly 3 minutes staring at his nephew with an expression that made Denise's blood run cold. She watched from the end of the hallway, pretending to dust a table. Bradley didn't look at Marcus with love. He didn't look at him with affection. He looked at him like a man looks at an obstacle, a problem, a thing in his way. After exactly 3 minutes, Bradley checked his watch and walked away. Denise made a note in her phone. 7:15, 7:18. Bradley at nursery, watching baby, cold expression. Every detail mattered. Every piece of the puzzle brought her closer to the truth. At 9 a.m., Stephanie came downstairs in her yoga clothes, car keys in hand. She paused at the front door and made a phone call. "It's me," she said. "We need to talk, tonight. The usual place." She glanced around, checking for listeners. Her eyes passed right over Denise, who was on her knees, scrubbing the floor near the entrance. Invisible. 10 o'clock, Stephanie continued. "And bring the contact information. It's time to move to Plan B." She hung up and walked out the door. Plan B. Denise's stomach clenched. Whatever Plan A had been, it had failed. Because she had been there. Because she had saved Marcus. Now they were moving to something else. Something new. And she had to find out what. At 11 a.m., Denise was cleaning the upstairs hallway when she heard Victoria crying in the master bedroom. She stopped outside the door, listening. Victoria was talking to someone. On the phone, maybe. Her voice was broken, fragmented. "I can't do this anymore. I know. He looks just like Jonathan every time I see him. No, I'm not drinking again, I promise. I need someone to tell me it's going to be okay." Denise's heart ached. Victoria wasn't evil. She was lost. A woman who had lost her husband and her sense of self and was now surrounded by people who wanted to steal everything else. She needed help, real help, but first Denise needed to save her baby. At 2 p.m. something unexpected happened. Denise was in the kitchen when Claire Victoria's personal assistant walked in. Claire was young, black, sharp-eyed, the only other person of color on the permanent staff. "You're the one who saved the baby yesterday," Claire said. It wasn't a question. Denise nodded. Claire looked around, making sure they were alone. Then she stepped closer. "I heard Mrs. Stephanie talking on the phone this morning. She didn't know I was in the next room." Claire's voice dropped to a whisper. "She was talking about you. She said you were a problem that needed to be dealt with." Denise's blood went cold. "What did she say exactly?" "She said the cleaning lady saw too much. She said they needed to handle it before you caused trouble." Claire paused. "She mentioned immigration services. Said she had a contact who could make your life very difficult." "I'm an American citizen." "Doesn't matter to people like her. She has money. She has lawyers. She has ways of making things happen." Claire's eyes were serious. "Be careful, Denise. These people, they're not what they seem. I've seen things in this house, heard things, and it scares me." "Then help me." Claire's face went pale. "What? Help me. You have access to Victoria. You hear things I don't. Together we could—" "No." Claire stepped back. "No, I can't. I have a mother with medical bills, a little sister in college. I can't afford to lose this job. And I can—" "You have a choice. I don't." Claire shook her head. "I'm sorry, I really am, but I can't get involved." She turned and walked out of the kitchen. Denise watched her go, disappointment and understanding warring in her chest. She couldn't blame Claire. She knew exactly what it meant to have people depending on you to make choices based on survival rather than principles. But it still hurt. She was alone. At 5 p.m., Sophie brought Marcus into the living room for his afternoon playtime. Denise was dusting nearby, invisible as always. Sophie set Marcus down on a blanket and immediately pulled out her phone, scrolling through social media while the baby played with his toys. But then something changed. Stephanie walked into the room. Sophie looked up. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that made Denise's skin crawl. Sophie nodded slightly. Stephanie smiled. And then Stephanie walked over to Marcus, knelt down beside him, and picked him up. She held him against her shoulder, bouncing him gently, cooing at him like a loving aunt. But her eyes weren't on Marcus. Her eyes were on Denise. Watching. Testing. Daring her to react. Denise forced herself to keep dusting. Forced herself to look away. Forced herself to be invisible. But inside, her mind was racing. Sophie was involved. The nanny was part of it. That's how they had gotten to Marcus the first time. That's how they would try again. The baby was surrounded by enemies, and the one person paid to protect him was one of them. At 6:30 p.m., Denise finished her shift. She gathered her things and headed for the door. But as she walked through the foyer, she saw something that stopped her cold. Victoria was standing at the bottom of the stairs holding Marcus. Her face was wet with tears. Her whole body was shaking, and she was staring at her son like she was seeing him for the first time. "Mrs. Ashford?" Denise approached carefully. "Are you okay?" Victoria looked up. Her eyes were wild, terrified. "The doctor called," she whispered. "They did blood work on Marcus yesterday after the incident. Routine, they said, just to make sure everything was okay." Denise's heart clenched. "And they found something." Victoria's voice broke. "Traces of something in his system. A sedative. Someone drugged my baby." The words hit Denise like a physical blow. A sedative. That's why Marcus had stopped breathing. That's why he hadn't cried or fussed or set off any alarms. Someone had drugged him. First made sure he was unconscious and then turned off the monitor. They hadn't just tried to kill him, they had planned it. Carefully, methodically, like a business operation. "Mrs. Ashford?" "You were right." Victoria looked at Denise with devastated eyes. "You were right. Someone in this house is trying to kill my son." Denise moved closer. "Then let me help you." How can you help me? You're a—" Victoria stopped herself. "A maid." Denise's voice was gentle but firm. "Yes, ma'am. I'm a maid. I clean your toilets and mop your floors. But I also saved your son's life. And I've been watching this house for 7 months. I see things nobody else sees. I hear things nobody thinks I hear. I know things that could blow this family apart." Victoria stared at her. "I know about the will," Denise continued. "I know Bradley thinks everything should belong to him. I know Stephanie is planning something. I know the nanny is involved. And I know that if we don't act fast, they're going to try again. How do you know all this? Because I pay attention, because I'm invisible to them, because they talk in front of me like I'm furniture. Denise reached out and touched Marcus's small hand. And because this baby matters to me, I held him when he wasn't breathing. I felt his heart stop and start again under my hands. That makes him mine to protect, in a way that has nothing to do with blood. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she did something that Denise never expected. She reached out and grabbed Denise's hand. "Help me," Victoria said. "Please. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who's lying to me, but you saved my son's life. That means something. That has to mean something." Denise squeezed her hand back. "It does," she said, "and we're going to save him together." Outside the window, the sun was setting over Greenwich. The shadows were getting longer. The danger was getting closer. But for the first time since that terrible morning in the nursery, Denise felt something other than fear. She felt hope. And somewhere in the darkness of the Ashford estate, someone was watching them through a security camera. Someone who had heard every word. Someone who was already planning what to do about the maid who wouldn't stay invisible. Victoria's hand was cold in Denise's grip. Cold and trembling like a woman standing at the edge of a cliff and looking down into the darkness below. Marcus slept against his mother's shoulder, oblivious to the danger swirling around him, oblivious to the fact that his own blood wanted him dead. "We need to talk somewhere private," Denise said quietly. "Not here. Not where they can hear." Victoria nodded. Her eyes darted to the corners of the room, to the places where shadows gathered where cameras might be hiding. "My car. In the garage. It's the only place I'm sure isn't monitored." They moved quickly, Denise following Victoria through a side door that led to the 6-car garage. Victoria's Mercedes sat in the corner, sleek and black, worth more than everything Denise had ever owned combined. They climbed inside Victoria in the driver's seat with Marcus still in her arms, Denise in the passenger seat. Victoria started the engine but didn't move the car. The low hum of the motor covered their voices from any listeners outside. "Tell me everything," Victoria said. "Everything you've seen, everything you've heard. I need to know." So Denise told her. She started from the beginning, from finding Marcus not breathing from the monitor that was deliberately turned off. She told her about Stephanie's threats, about Bradley's conversation in the hallway, about the folder hidden in his office with his handwritten notes about the will. Victoria listened without interrupting. Her face grew paler with every word. Her arms tightened around Marcus until the baby stirred and whimpered in his sleep. When Denise finished, Victoria was silent for a long moment. "Jonathan," she finally whispered. "His accident. The brake failure." She looked at Denise with horror dawning in her eyes. "Do you think they killed him too?" Denise had been wondering the same thing. "I don't know, ma'am, but I think we need to find out." Victoria's composure cracked. A sob escaped her throat, raw and broken. "He was my husband. He was the father of my child, and his own brother might have murdered him." She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. "How did I not see it? How did I not know?" "Because they're good at hiding it. Because they smile at you and sit at your dinner table and pretend to be family while they're planning to take everything from you." "I trusted them." Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "I trusted Stephanie. She was there for me after Jonathan died. She held my hand at the funeral. She helped me with his baby when I couldn't get out of bed. She was watching you, getting close, learning your weaknesses." Victoria lifted her head. Her eyes were red, but something hard was forming behind the tears. Something that looked like steel. "What do we do?" Denise had been thinking about this since the moment she heard Bradley's voice in that hallway. "We need proof, real proof, something the police can't ignore." "What kind of proof?" "The sedative they gave Marcus. Where did it come from? Who had access to it if we can trace it back to Stephanie or Bradley that's attempted murder?" Denise paused. "And we need to find out who else is involved. The nanny Sophie. I've seen her and Stephanie communicating. Something's going on there." Victoria nodded slowly. "I can get the toxicology report from Marcus's doctor. I can request security footage from the house." She hesitated. "But Bradley has access to the security system. He helped Jonathan set it up. If he's erasing footage or manipulating cameras, then we set our own traps." Victoria looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean we let them think they're winning. We act normal. We don't let them know we're onto them. And while they're relaxed, while they think they're safe, we watch. We document. We catch them in the act. That's dangerous. If they realize what we're doing, they already know I'm suspicious. They slashed my tire. They sent me threatening messages. They're not going to stop coming after me whether we do this or not." Denise met Victoria's eyes. "The only way out is through. We take them down before they take us down." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she shifted Marcus in her arms and reached into her purse. She pulled out her phone and handed it to Denise. "My private number, not the one I use for family. Nobody else has it except my lawyer and my mother." She paused. "From now on, we communicate only through this. We trust no one else in that house, and we don't stop until my son is safe." Denise took the phone number and entered it into her contacts under a fake name. "One more thing. The bonus you gave me this morning. I'm going to use it to buy some equipment, hidden cameras, recording devices, things they won't be able to find. Do it, whatever you need. I'll make sure you have the money." For the first time since this nightmare began, Denise felt something other than fear and isolation. She felt partnership, alliance. Two women from completely different worlds united by their determination to protect an innocent child. "We're going to get through this," Denise said. "Both of us, all three of us." Victoria looked down at Marcus sleeping peacefully against her chest. "He's all I have left of Jonathan. He's everything." Her voice broke. "I can't lose him too." "You won't." Denise put her hand on Victoria's arm. "I promise you. Whatever it takes. You won't lose him." They sat in that car for another 20 minutes, planning, strategizing, building the foundation of their counterattack. By the time Denise left the garage, the sun had fully set and the Ashford estate was dark. But inside her chest, something was burning bright. Hope. And determination. And the kind of rage that comes when you've seen evil up close and decided to fight back. Day 2 began at 4:30 in the morning. Denise arrived at the estate before anyone else, her bag heavier than usual. Hidden inside her cleaning supplies were 3 miniature cameras she'd purchased at an electronics store the night before, small enough to hide anywhere sensitive enough to capture clear footage in low light. She moved through the house like a shadow, placing the cameras in strategic locations. One in the nursery, tucked behind a stuffed bear on the highest shelf. One in the hallway outside Bradley's office, hidden in a decorative plant. One in the kitchen, positioned to capture the back door that the staff used to come and go. By the time the household began to wake, everything was in place. At 7:15, Bradley made his usual stop outside the nursery. Denise watched from down the hall as he stood in the doorway, staring at Marcus with that cold, calculating expression she had come to recognize. 3 minutes. Exactly 3 minutes. Then he checked his watch and walked away. But this time, Denise had footage. At 8:30, Stephanie came downstairs in her workout clothes. She paused at the front door and made a phone call, just like yesterday. "It's done," she said quietly. "The new supply arrives tomorrow. Make sure it's untraceable this time." New supply, untraceable. Denise's blood ran cold. They were planning something else, something soon. She texted Victoria immediately. "Maid call. New supply arriving tomorrow. Untraceable. They're not stopping." Victoria's response came 30 seconds later. "I'm calling my lawyer. We need to move faster." At 10 a.m., something unexpected happened. Denise was cleaning the second-floor bathroom when she heard footsteps approaching. Heavy footsteps. A man's walk. She barely had time to grab her cleaning supplies before Bradley Ashford appeared in the doorway. He stood there blocking her exit, his arms crossed over his chest. His face was calm, pleasant evenly. That was what made it terrifying. "Denise, isn't it?" "Yes, sir." "My wife tells me you've been asking questions about the baby monitor, about what happened to my nephew." He tilted his head. "Is that true?" Denise's heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm just concerned about the baby, sir, like everyone else." "Are you—" Bradley stepped closer. "Because from what I hear, you seem unusually concerned, almost obsessively so." "He nearly died, sir. That's not something I can forget." "No, I suppose not." Bradley's eyes were flat. Dead, like looking into a shark's gaze. "But here's the thing, Denise. In this family, we take care of our own. We don't need outsiders getting involved in our business. We don't need cleaning ladies playing detective. I'm not playing anything, sir. I'm just doing my job." "Good. Make sure it stays that way." Bradley reached out and touched her shoulder, a gesture that made her skin crawl. "Because I would hate to see anything happen to someone who's been so helpful to our family." He smiled and walked away. Denise stood frozen in that bathroom, her whole body trembling. The threat had been clear. Crystal clear. They knew she was watching, and they were warning her to stop. But she wasn't going to stop. Not now. Not when she was so close. At noon, Claire found Denise in the staff kitchen. I heard what happened, Claire whispered. Bradley cornered you in the bathroom. The other staff are talking about it. What are they saying? That you're making trouble. That you're asking too many questions about the Ashford family business. Claire's face was worried. Denise, you need to be careful. These people don't play games. I know exactly what they are. Claire hesitated. There's something else, something I heard this morning. She glanced around, making sure they were alone. Sophie, the nanny, she was on the phone with someone. She didn't know I was in the pantry. Denise's attention sharpened. What did she say? She was giving instructions, detailed instructions about Marcus's schedule, when he naps, when he eats, when he's alone in the nursery. Claire's voice dropped even lower. She was telling someone exactly when the best time would be to get to him without being seen. Denise felt the blood drain from her face. Who was she talking to? I don't know, but whoever it was, she called them the contact. And she said everything would be ready by Friday. Friday? That was 3 days away. Claire, I need you to do something for me. Denise, I told you I can't get involved. I'm not asking you to confront anyone. I'm not asking you to put yourself in danger. Denise grabbed Claire's hands. I just need you to watch, and listen, and tell me if you hear anything else. Can you do that? Claire's face was torn. Fear battling with conscience. Self-preservation warring with basic human decency. My mother, she said quietly. She has diabetes. The medical bills are crushing us. If I lose this job, I understand. I do. But Claire, if we don't stop these people, a baby is going to die. An innocent 3-month-old baby who never hurt anyone. Can you live with that? Can you look at yourself in the mirror knowing you could have helped and didn't? Claire was silent for a long moment. Then she closed her eyes and let out a breath. Friday. You said Friday. That's what Sophie said. Everything would be ready by Friday. Okay. Claire opened her eyes. They were scared but resolved. I'll watch. I'll listen. But Denise, if this goes wrong, it won't. I promise. Claire nodded and walked away, her shoulders tense with fear and the weight of the choice she had just made. Denise watched her go. She had an ally now. A reluctant one, but an ally. 3 days until Friday. 3 days to gather enough evidence to stop whatever nightmare they were planning. At 2 p.m., Denise checked her hidden cameras. The footage was streaming directly to her phone, encrypted and secure. She scrolled through the morning's recordings. Bradley standing outside the nursery, 3 minutes of cold staring. Stephanie's phone call in the foyer. The audio was muffled but audible. And then something that made her stomach drop. Sophie in the nursery at 11 a.m. while Marcus was supposed to be napping. She wasn't checking on him. She wasn't adjusting his blankets or making sure he was comfortable. She was taking photographs of the room, of the windows, of the security camera in the corner that she clearly thought was the only one. She was casing the nursery like a criminal casing a bank. Denise saved the footage and forwarded it to Victoria. Taking photos of nursery, windows, exits, cameras. They're planning something. Victoria's response was immediate. I'm coming home early. We need to talk. At 3:30, Victoria arrived at the estate. She went straight to her office, and 10 minutes later, Denise received a text. Meet me in the garage, now. Denise made an excuse to the staff supervisor and slipped out to the garage. Victoria was already there, sitting in her Mercedes, her face pale but determined. I got the toxicology report, Victoria said as soon as Denise climbed in. The sedative they used on Marcus, it's called midazolam. It's a hospital-grade sedative, the kind used for medical procedures. It's not something you can just buy at a pharmacy. Where would they get it? That's what I've been thinking about. Victoria's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Bradley sits on the board of our pharmaceutical company. He has access to our medical supply division. He could easily get his hands on something like that without anyone asking questions. So he supplied the drugs. And Sophie administered them. Victoria's voice was bitter. I hired her. I trusted her with my son's life. And the whole time she was working for them. What about Stephanie? She's the coordinator. She's the one making the calls, setting up the timeline, making sure everything goes according to plan. Victoria shook her head. They've been planning this for months, maybe longer, maybe since before Jonathan died. The weight of that statement hung in the air between them. We have 3 days, Denise said. 3 days before whatever they're planning for Friday. We need to go to the police. With what footage of Sophie taking photographs? Audio of Stephanie making vague phone calls. The police are going to ask for hard evidence. They're going to want to know how we got these recordings. And the Ashfords have lawyers, Mrs. Victoria. Expensive lawyers. The kind that can make evidence disappear and make accusers look crazy. Victoria slammed her palm against the steering wheel. Then what do we do? Just wait for them to kill my son. We set a trap. Denise had been thinking about this all day. We make them think they're succeeding. We give them an opportunity. And when they take it, we catch them red-handed. Use my baby as bait. Victoria's voice rose. Are you insane? Not as bait, as the protected prize. We let them think they have a clear shot. But when they make their move, we'll have police waiting. Real police. Not ones they can buy or influence. Victoria stared at her. How do you know any police we call won't be on their payroll? I don't, but I know someone who might help. Denise pulled out her phone. My cousin's husband is a detective in Hartford. Different jurisdiction, no connection to Greenwich or the Ashford family. He owes me a favor from way back. You trust him? With my life. Denise paused. And with Marcus's. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Make the call. That night at 9 p.m., Denise sat in a diner parking lot in Hartford waiting. The air was cold, her breath fogging in front of her face, but she barely noticed. Every nerve in her body was focused on the door of the diner. A black sedan pulled into the lot. A man got out, tall, broad-shouldered, with the cautious walk of someone who spent his life dealing with dangerous situations. Marcus Thompson, Denise's cousin's husband. 20 years on the Hartford police force, the last 8 as a homicide detective. He slid into the passenger seat of Denise's borrowed car. Victoria had given her the Mercedes for the night, knowing Denise's Honda was still in the shop with its slashed tire. Denise, Marcus's voice was deep and serious. You said it was urgent. It's more than urgent. She handed him her phone. Watch these videos, listen to these recordings, and then tell me what we can do. Marcus spent 20 minutes going through everything. His face grew darker with each clip, each photograph, each piece of evidence that Denise had gathered. When he finished, he let out a long breath. These people tried to kill a baby. And they're going to try again, Friday. That's what we heard. Friday. Marcus rubbed his jaw. That's not a lot of time. I know. That's why I need your help. Denise, this is complicated. This is Greenwich. Different jurisdiction, different politics. The Ashfords are connected. They have money-influenced lawyers who eat cops like me for breakfast. So you're saying you can't help? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at her with eyes that reminded her why she had called him, why she had trusted him. I'm saying it's complicated, but complicated doesn't mean impossible. He handed her phone back. I have a contact in the state police, Major Crimes Division, someone who doesn't owe anything to anyone in Greenwich. If we bring this to her, if we do this right, we can take them down. We can try. Marcus paused. But Denise, you need to understand something. If we move on this, it's going to get dangerous. The Ashfords aren't going to go quietly. They're going to fight back. They're going to come after everyone involved, including you. They're already coming after me. Then it'll get worse. Much worse. Marcus met her eyes. Are you ready for that? Denise thought about Marcus Jr. sleeping peacefully in his crib, not knowing that his own family wanted him dead. She thought about Victoria broken and grieving, but fighting with everything she had. She thought about Maya waiting for her in Georgia, believing in her. I've been invisible my whole life, she said quietly. I've kept my head down and my mouth shut and done what I needed to survive. But this baby, he doesn't have anyone else. His own blood wants him dead. His own nanny is planning to help them kill him. I'm all he's got. You're not all he's got. His mother is fighting for him too. Then we fight together. Denise straightened in her seat. Whatever it costs, whatever it takes, we fight together. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, I'll make the call tonight. We'll set up a meeting with my contact for tomorrow, but Denise, from now on, you need to be careful. More careful than you've ever been in your life. I will. And you need to document everything. Every conversation, every movement, every strange look. By the time Friday comes, I want enough evidence to bury these people. You'll have it. Marcus opened the car door, then paused. Denise? Why are you doing this, really? That baby isn't yours. That family isn't yours. You could walk away right now, and no one would blame you. Denise was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft, but steady. When I found Marcus not breathing, I held him in my arms, and I breathed life back into him. I felt his heart stop, and I felt it start again. Something happened in that moment. Something I can't explain. She paused. He's mine now, in a way that has nothing to do with blood or paperwork. He's mine to protect, and I will protect him with everything I have. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, Then he nodded. "I'll call you tomorrow." He got out of the car and walked back to his sedan. Denise watched him drive away, then sat alone in the parking lot, the weight of everything pressing down on her shoulders. 3 days until Friday. 3 days to save a baby's life. 3 days to take down an empire built on blood and lies. She started the car and drove back toward Greenwich, toward the mansion full of monsters, toward the battle that was waiting for her. Day 3. Wednesday. 2 days until Friday. Denise arrived at the estate at 4:30 a.m., but this time she wasn't alone. Hidden in her bag was a secure phone that Marcus had given her a direct line to the state police contact who was now coordinating the operation. The plan was simple. Document everything for the next 2 days. Build an airtight case, and on Friday, when the Ashfords made their move, have police standing by to catch them in the act. But simple plans never stayed simple. At 8 a.m., Sophie did something unexpected. She called in sick. Denise overheard the conversation when Victoria took the call. Sophie claimed she had a stomach flu, said she'd be out for at least 2 days, promised to be back by Friday at the latest. Back by Friday. The same day Claire had heard mentioned. The same day everything was supposed to be ready. Sophie wasn't sick. Sophie was getting out of the way, giving herself an alibi for whatever was about to happen. Denise texted Victoria immediately. Sophie called out, claimed sick, she's setting up her alibi. Victoria's response came fast. "I noticed. What do? We watch, we wait. Something's changing." At 10 a.m., Bradley left the house for what he claimed was a business meeting, but Denise watched him from the window, and something about his body language was different. He was nervous, excited, like a man on the edge of something big. He was gone for 4 hours. When he came back at 2 p.m., he was carrying a small black bag that he hadn't left with. He took it straight to his office and locked the door. Denise positioned herself nearby, pretending to clean. Through the crack under the door, she could hear him on the phone. "Yes, everything's set. Friday night. Victoria has that charity thing, she'll be out until at least 11. Sophie will have the back door unlocked by 8. We move at 8:30. A pause. "No, the cleaning staff is gone by 6. The only person in the house will be the baby and whoever's watching him, and we've already taken care of that." Another pause. "Stop worrying. By Saturday morning, this will all be over. The baby will be gone, Victoria will be destroyed, and everything will finally be ours." The call ended. Denise stood frozen in the hallway, her heart slamming against her ribs. She had it. She had everything. Times, dates, details, the whole plan laid out in Bradley's own words. She pulled out her phone and recorded herself repeating everything she had just heard while it was fresh, while the details were perfect. Then she texted Victoria and Marcus at the same time. "Got it all. Friday night. 8:30 p.m. Sophie unlocks back door. They're coming for Marcus. V will be at charity event. Full plan recorded." Victoria's response was a single word. "Tonight? We plan tonight." Marcus's response was longer. "Meeting with state police at 6 p.m. Bring everything you have." At 5 p.m., Denise left the estate. She told the supervisor she had a family emergency that she might not be in tomorrow. The supervisor barely looked up from her phone, invisible until the end. She drove to Hartford to a nondescript office building where Marcus and his contact were waiting. The state police detective was a woman named Rodriguez, 50 years old, hard eyes, no-nonsense attitude. For 2 hours, Denise laid out everything. The recordings, the photographs, the conversations she had overheard, the timeline, the plan. When she finished, Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. "This is attempted murder," she finally said. "Conspiracy to commit murder. If we can catch them in the act on Friday, we've got them. All of them. And if we can't, then we've got nothing. No prosecutor in the country is going to charge a billionaire family on the word of a cleaning lady and some grainy hidden camera footage." Rodriguez leaned forward. "We have to catch them in the act. There's no other way. So we let them try to kill the baby. We let them think they're going to succeed, but when they make their move, we'll be there. Undercover officers inside the house, tactical team outside. The second they touch that child, we take them down." Denise's stomach churned. What if something goes wrong? What if they hurt Marcus before you can stop them? "That's the risk." Rodriguez's voice was flat. "There's always a risk, but if we don't do this, if we don't catch them in the act, they'll try again. And again, until they succeed. This is our best chance. Maybe our only chance." Denise thought about Marcus Jr. sleeping peacefully in his crib. She thought about the weight of his body in her arms when he wasn't breathing. She thought about the sound of his heart starting again. "Okay," she said. "We do it your way." "Good." Rodriguez stood up. "Friday night, Be ready. Day 4, Thursday. 1 day until Friday. Denise went back to the estate. She cleaned floors and scrubbed toilets and smiled at the people who wanted to kill a baby. She watched Bradley whistling to himself in the hallways, watched Stephanie humming as she checked her phone, watched the household continue its normal rhythm while a conspiracy churned beneath the surface. At 11 a.m., something unexpected happened. Victoria called Denise into her office. "Close the door." Denise closed it. Victoria's face was pale. "I got a call this morning from Bradley's lawyer." "About what?" "About me." Victoria's hands were shaking. "They're claiming I'm mentally unfit to manage Marcus's trust. They're saying my grief has made me unstable. They're filing a petition to have me removed as trustee." Denise felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "They're moving faster than we thought. If they remove me as trustee, control of everything goes to Bradley. He won't need to kill Marcus anymore. He'll have legal control of the entire estate." "Can they do that?" "They can try. It'll take months to work through the courts, but..." Victoria's voice broke. "If Marcus dies before then, if something happens to him while the case is pending, Bradley inherits automatically. It's all in the will." Denise understood now. The petition wasn't about winning in court. It was about creating a window, a period of legal confusion during which anything could happen. They're covering their bases. If the murder works, they're set. If it doesn't, they have a legal backup plan. "We have to stop them. Friday night. We have to stop them." "We will." Denise took Victoria's hands. "The police are ready. Everything is in place. This time tomorrow, it'll all be over." Victoria looked at her with eyes full of fear and desperate hope. Promise me my baby will be safe." "I promise." But even as she said the words, Denise felt the weight of them pressing down on her chest. Promises were easy to make. They were much harder to keep. That night at 9 p.m., Denise got a phone call from Claire. "They know." Claire's voice was terrified. "Denise, they know about the police." Denise's blood turned to ice. "What? How?" "I don't know, but I heard Bradley on the phone just now. He was furious. He said someone tipped them off. He said they're moving everything up." "Moving up to when?" "Tonight. They're coming tonight." The phone slipped from Denise's hand. "Tonight. Not Friday. Tonight." She grabbed the phone and called Marcus. No answer. Called Rodriguez. No answer. Called Victoria. No answer. She was alone. And somewhere in that mansion, killers were already on the move. Denise ran to her car. She drove faster than she had ever driven in her life, her heart pounding, her hands gripping the wheel so tight her knuckles went white. "Please, God," she prayed. "Please let me get there in time." The Ashford estate loomed ahead of her, dark and silent. Denise pulled up to the service entrance and jumped out. The back door was unlocked. Just like the plan said. Just like Sophie had promised. But Sophie was supposed to be sick. Denise moved through the darkened house, her footsteps silent on the marble floors. 7 months of being invisible had taught her how to walk without making a sound. She heard voices ahead. In the nursery wing. She crept closer. Through the crack in the nursery door, she could see them. Stephanie standing over the crib, a syringe in her hand, and beside her, a man Denise didn't recognize, tall and broad, holding a black bag. The man was lifting Marcus out of the crib. "No." The word escaped Denise's lips before she could stop it. Stephanie's head snapped toward the door. Her eyes widened. "You?" And then everything happened at once. Stephanie's eyes locked onto Denise like a predator spotting unexpected prey. The syringe in her hand caught the dim light from the hallway, its needle glinting with deadly promise. The man holding Marcus froze the baby, stirring in his arms, a small whimper escaping his tiny lips. "Well, well," Stephanie's voice was ice. "The cleaning lady, I should have known." Denise's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get help, to do anything except stand here alone against 2 people who wanted to murder a child. But running meant leaving Marcus. Running meant letting them win. "Put him down." Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "Put him down right now." Stephanie laughed. It was a cold, brittle sound that echoed off the nursery walls. "Or what you'll call the police by the time anyone gets here will be long gone. And so will the baby." "The police are already coming." Something flickered in Stephanie's eyes. Uncertainty, fear. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Denise pulled out her phone, held it up. "I called them before I came in. They're 5 minutes out. Maybe less." It was a lie. She hadn't been able to reach anyone. But Stephanie didn't know that. The man holding Marcus shifted nervously. "Steph, we need to go now." Shut up. Stephanie's eyes never left Denise. She's lying. Look at her. She's shaking. She's alone. Nobody's coming. You willing to bet your freedom on that? Denise took a step forward. You willing to bet your life? 9:47 p.m. The standoff stretched for an eternity that lasted 3 seconds. Denise could hear Marcus whimpering, could see his tiny hands reaching for something, someone, anyone who would make him feel safe. Then Stephanie moved. She lunged at Denise, the syringe aimed at her neck. Denise threw herself sideways, crashing into a shelf of stuffed animals, sending them tumbling to the floor. Stephanie stumbled past her off balance, and Denise grabbed her arm, twisted it, forced the syringe away from both of them. They struggled. Stephanie was younger, stronger, but Denise had 42 years of hard work behind her. 42 years of scrubbing and lifting and carrying. 42 years of surviving. The syringe fell to the floor and rolled under the crib. Stephanie screamed in frustration and shoved Denise backward. Denise hit the wall hard, the air knocked from her lungs, stars exploding behind her eyes. Get the baby out of here. Stephanie's voice was ragged. I'll handle her. The man headed for the door. No. Denise pushed herself off the wall and threw herself at him, grabbing his leg, bringing him down. Marcus tumbled from his arms, and Denise caught him, caught the baby, cradled him against her chest as she rolled away from the man's grasping hands. Give him to me. The man was on his feet, looming over her. Give me the baby or I swear to God. You'll have to kill me first. The words came from somewhere deep inside her, somewhere primal, somewhere that had nothing to do with logic or survival and everything to do with the tiny heartbeat pressed against her own. The man reached for her, and then the nursery door exploded inward. 9:52 p.m. Bradley Ashford stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage. What the hell is going on? I heard screaming from downstairs. He saw Denise on the floor holding Marcus. He saw Stephanie disheveled and panting. He saw the man frozen mid-reach. You idiots! His voice was low and dangerous. You absolute idiots! I told you to wait. I told you the timing had to be perfect. She showed up. Stephanie pointed at Denise. She ruined everything. Then finish it. Bradley's eyes went cold. Finish it now, both of them. The man turned back to Denise. His hands reached for her throat, and then a voice rang out from the hallway. Step away from her, now! Marcus Thompson stood behind Bradley, his gun drawn, his badge visible on his chest. Behind him, 3 more officers in tactical gear. Hartford Police, everyone on the ground, now! 9:54 p.m. Everything happened in a blur of shouting and movement. Bradley tried to run and was tackled by 2 officers. Stephanie screamed that she wanted her lawyer, that this was illegal, that they had no right. The unknown man dropped to his knees, with his hands behind his head, suddenly cooperative, suddenly willing to do anything to save himself. Denise stayed on the floor, clutching Marcus to her chest, sobbing. The baby was crying, too frightened by the noise and chaos, but alive, breathing, safe. Marcus Thompson knelt beside her. Denise, are you okay? Are you hurt? She couldn't speak, could only shake her head, could only hold the baby tighter. We got them. Marcus's voice was gentle. It's over. We got them. But it wasn't over, not yet, because as the officers hauled Bradley and Stephanie to their feet as they read them their rights and prepared to take them away, Denise noticed something. Someone was missing. Where's Sophie? She looked around wildly. The nanny? Where is she? Marcus Thompson's face went pale. She wasn't here when we arrived. The back door was open, but a scream from somewhere deep in the house cut him off. Victoria's scream. 10:01 p.m. Denise thrust Marcus into Marcus Thompson's arms and ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs, toward the sound of Victoria's voice. Her legs burned. Her lungs ached. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She found them in the kitchen. Sophie had Victoria on the floor, a knife pressed to her throat. Victoria's eyes were wide with terror, her body frozen, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Stay back. Sophie's voice was calm. Too calm. The voice of someone who had nothing left to lose. Stay back or I'll kill her. Denise stopped in the doorway. Sophie, it's over. The police have Bradley and Stephanie. Whatever they promised you, it's gone. There's nothing left to fight for. You think I did this for them? Sophie laughed bitterly. You think I care about their money, their empire, their pathetic family drama. Then why? Sophie's eyes went dark. Because Jonathan Ashford destroyed my family. Because he bought my father's company, stripped it for parts, and left us with nothing. Because my mother killed herself after we lost everything. Because I've been planning this for 3 years, waiting for the perfect moment, and I was so close. So close. Victoria made a sound, something between a sob and a moan. I didn't know. Jonathan never told me. Of course he didn't. Sophie pressed the knife harder. A thin line of blood appeared on Victoria's neck. Rich people never think about the lives they destroy. They just take and take and take and never look back at the bodies they leave behind. 10:05 p.m. Denise's mind raced. Sophie wasn't like Bradley and Stephanie. She wasn't motivated by greed or jealousy. She was motivated by pain, by loss, by a grief so deep it had twisted into something monstrous. I understand, Denise said quietly. Sophie's eyes snapped to her. You don't understand anything. I understand loss. I understand watching someone you love destroyed by forces you can't control. Denise took a small step forward. My husband died 12 years ago. Cancer. We couldn't afford the treatments that might have saved him. I watched him waste away in a hospital bed while rich people walked past our door without a second glance. Sophie's hand trembled slightly. Then you know what it's like. I do. I know the anger. I know the rage. I know what it feels like to want someone to pay for what you've lost. Another small step. But this won't bring your mother back. Killing Victoria won't undo what Jonathan did. It'll just create more pain, more loss, more grief. I don't care. Yes, you do. Denise was closer now, close enough to see the tears streaming down Sophie's face. You care because you're still human. You're still that little girl who lost her mother, and that little girl didn't want to become a killer. That's not who she was. Sophie's knife hand wavered. You don't know who I am. I know you're hurting. I know you've been hurting for a long time, and I know that this right here, right now, this isn't going to make it stop. Denise held out her hand. Let her go, Sophie. Let Victoria go and let yourself have a chance at something other than this. 10:09 p.m. The moment stretched like taffy. Denise could hear police officers in the hallway, could hear them calling for backup, calling for negotiators. But she knew they wouldn't get here in time. Whatever happened in the next few seconds would determine whether Victoria lived or died. Sophie looked at Denise's outstretched hand, looked at Victoria trembling beneath her, looked at the knife stained now with a thin smear of blood, and then slowly she let go. The knife clattered to the floor. Sophie crumpled her whole body, shaking with sobs. Victoria scrambled away, hand pressed to her bleeding neck, crying with relief. Denise kicked the knife across the room and knelt beside Sophie. It's okay. It's okay. You made the right choice. I wanted them to suffer. Sophie's voice was broken. I wanted them all to suffer like I suffered. I know, but suffering doesn't end suffering. It just spreads it around. Denise looked up as officers rushed into the kitchen as they pulled Sophie to her feet as they surrounded Victoria with medical personnel. It's over now. It's finally over. 10:15 p.m. The next 2 hours were chaos. Police everywhere. Paramedics checking Victoria's neck, checking Denise for injuries, checking Marcus Jr. to make sure he was unharmed. Statements taken. Evidence collected. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and power, now crawling with law enforcement. Bradley and Stephanie were loaded into separate police cars. Denise watched from the driveway as they were driven away, their faces pale in the flashing lights. Bradley caught her eye through the window. His expression was pure hatred, pure venom, a promise of revenge that sent a chill down her spine. But he was in handcuffs, and she was free. Victoria found her on the front steps at midnight, wrapped in a blanket one of the paramedics had given her, staring at nothing. Denise? She looked up. Victoria stood there, Marcus Jr. in her arms, a white bandage on her neck. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something else there too. Something that looked like strength. He's asking for you. Victoria held the baby out. I mean, he's not asking in words, but he keeps looking around like he's searching for something. I think he's searching for you. Denise took Marcus into her arms. The baby immediately settled, his small body relaxing against her chest, his eyes drifting closed. How did you know? Victoria asked quietly. Tonight. How did you know they moved up the timeline? Claire, your assistant. She overheard Bradley and called me. Victoria's eyes widened. Claire, she was involved. She helped us. She risked everything to help us. Denise paused. Without her, I wouldn't have gotten here in time. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched Denise's arm. I owe you everything. My son's life. My own life. Everything. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything, Victoria repeated, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that. 12:17 a.m. Detective Rodriguez arrived just after midnight. She was furious, her face tight with anger and fear. What the hell happened? She grabbed Marcus Thompson's arm. We had a plan, Friday night. Everything was supposed to happen Friday night. They moved it up, Someone tipped them off. Who? Marcus Thompson shook his head. We don't know yet, but we're going to find out. Rodriguez turned to Denise. Her expression softened slightly. You okay? I'm alive. The baby's alive. Victoria's alive. Denise paused. I guess that means I'm okay. You shouldn't have gone in alone. You could have been killed. I know, but I didn't have a choice. If I'd waited... I know? Rodriguez sighed. You did good. Stupid, but good. She turned back to Marcus Thompson. Let's get statements from everyone and find out who the leak was. I want to know how they knew we were coming. 1:45 a.m. Denise sat in the back of a police car giving her statement for the third time. The same questions, the same answers, the same exhausting recounting of everything that had happened. When it was finally over, she leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. You're a hero, you know. She opened her eyes. Marcus Thompson was standing outside the car, his expression a mix of exhaustion and admiration. I don't feel like a hero. I feel like I'm about to pass out. That's usually how heroes feel. He smiled slightly. The police are going to need you to come in tomorrow. More statements, more questions. This is going to be a big case. I know. But tonight you should go home. Get some rest. He paused. You earned it. Home. Denise thought about her tiny apartment in Bridgeport. Thought about the empty refrigerator and the unpaid bills and the life she had put on hold to fight for a baby who wasn't hers. I don't have a way home. My car's still in the shop. I'll drive you. She looked at him surprised. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. Marcus Thompson opened the car door for her. Come on, let's get you home. 3:30 a.m. The drive to Bridgeport was quiet. Denise dozed in the passenger seat, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. She woke when the car stopped outside her apartment building. Thank you, she said, her voice rough with sleep. For everything. For believing me. For helping. Thank you, Marcus Thompson replied. For being brave enough to fight. Most people would have walked away. I couldn't. Not after I held him. Not after I felt his heart stop under my hands. She paused. Some things you can't walk away from. She got out of the car and walked toward her building. At the door, she turned back. Marcus Thompson was still there watching her, making sure she got inside safe. She waved. He waved back. And then she went inside, climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, and collapsed on her bed without even taking off her shoes. She was asleep before her head hit the pillow. 8:00 a.m. the next morning. Denise woke to her phone ringing. She grabbed it without opening her eyes. Hello. Denise, it's Victoria. Did I wake you? No. She forced herself to sit up. I mean, yes, but it's okay. What's wrong? Is Marcus okay? He's fine. He's perfect. Victoria's voice was warm. I'm calling because I just got off the phone with my lawyer. The charges against Bradley and Stephanie are being filed today. Attempted murder, conspiracy, kidnapping. They're looking at life in prison. Denise let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Good. That's good. And Sophie is cooperating with the investigation. She's giving them everything. Names, dates, details, in exchange for a reduced sentence. She's not a monster. She's just broken. I know, that doesn't make what she did okay, but... Victoria paused. I'm starting to understand that hurt people. And maybe if someone had helped Sophie years ago, none of this would have happened. They were quiet for a moment. There's something else, Victoria said. Something I need to tell you in person. Can you come to the house today? I'm not sure I ever want to see that house again. Victoria laughed softly. I understand, but please, it's important. 2:00 p.m. Denise stood outside the Ashford estate, her stomach churning. The last time she had been here, she had fought for her life. Had fought for Marcus's life. The memories were still raw, still bleeding. But Victoria had asked. And after everything they had been through together, Denise couldn't say no. She walked up the driveway and rang the bell. Victoria opened the door herself. She was holding Marcus, who immediately reached for Denise with grabby hands and a toothless smile. He's been asking for you all morning. Victoria handed the baby over. I think he knows you saved him. Denise held Marcus against her chest, feeling his heartbeat, feeling his warmth, feeling the impossible miracle of his continued existence. I missed you too little, man. Victoria led her into the living room, past the spots where they had fought, past the memories that would never fully fade. They sat on a couch that probably cost more than Denise's yearly salary, but somehow sitting there didn't feel as strange as it once would have. I need to tell you something, Victoria said. about what happens next. What do you mean? I mean after all of this, after the trial, after everything settles. Victoria took a deep breath. I'm selling the company. Denise stared at her. What? Jonathan's pharmaceutical empire. I'm selling it, all of it. Victoria's voice was steady. Sophie was right about one thing. Jonathan hurt people. His business practices destroyed families, ruined lives. I didn't know. I didn't want to know, but I can't unknow it now. What are you going to do with the money? Some of it goes into a trust for Marcus. The rest, Victoria smiled. The rest I'm going to use to try to fix some of the damage Jonathan caused. Starting a foundation, helping the families who lost everything to his corporate raids, trying to make something good out of all this pain. Denise didn't know what to say. She had expected many things, but not this. And there's something else. Victoria reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is for you. Denise took the envelope. It was thick, heavy. What is this? Open it. Denise opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of papers. Legal documents. Her name at the top. Numbers that didn't make sense. I don't understand. It's a trust fund. In your name. Enough money that you never have to clean another toilet for the rest of your life. Victoria's eyes were bright with tears. It's not payment. I could never pay you for what you did. But it's a thank you. A real tangible, life-changing thank you. Denise's hands trembled. Victoria, I can't accept this. You can. You have to. Victoria leaned forward. You saved my son. You saved me. You risked everything, for a family that wasn't yours, for a baby you had no obligation to protect. The least I can do is make sure you never have to struggle again. The numbers on the papers blurred as tears filled Denise's eyes. $2 million. Enough to buy a house. Enough to pay for Maya's college. Enough to change everything. And there's one more thing. Victoria's voice grew serious. I want you to stay, here, with us. What do you mean? I mean, Marcus needs someone who loves him, really loves him, not a nanny who sees him as a job, not family members who see him as an obstacle, someone who held him when he was dying and breathed life back into him. Victoria paused. He needs you, Denise, and if I'm being honest, I need you too. 3:30 p.m. Denise sat in Victoria's living room for a long time after that conversation, holding Marcus, trying to process everything that had happened. The money, the offer, the possibility of a completely different life. Her phone buzzed, a text from Maya. Mama, I saw the news. Is it true? Did you really save a baby from killers? Are you okay? Denise laughed through her tears. She typed back, I'm okay, baby. More than okay. Call you tonight. Big news. She looked down at Marcus, who was playing with her necklace, completely unaware of how much his small life had changed the world around him. You hear that, little man? Big news. Marcus gurgled happily. 5:00 p.m. Before she left that day, Denise asked Victoria one more question. The leak. The person who told Bradley and Stephanie about the police. Do they know who it was? Victoria's face darkened. They found out this morning. It was one of the household staff, the cook. Apparently Bradley had been paying her for information for months. The cook. Denise thought about the woman she had seen every day in the kitchen, the one who never looked up when Denise walked past, the one who was invisible just like Denise. She's been arrested, accessory to attempted murder. Victoria shook her head. I trusted everyone in this house, and it turns out I couldn't trust anyone. You could trust me? Victoria smiled. Yes, I could trust you, the one person I never even noticed. That night, Denise called Maya and told her everything. The danger, the fight, the money, the offer. Maya was silent for a long time after Denise finished. Mama, can you... She finally said, her voice choked with emotion. I'm so proud of you. Proud of me. You saved a baby's life. You took down murderers. You're a hero. Maya laughed through her tears. My mama is a hero. I'm just a woman who did what needed to be done. That's exactly what heroes say. They talked for 2 more hours. About the future. About possibilities. About the life that was opening up in front of them like a door they never knew existed. By the time Denise hung up, it was almost midnight. She sat in her tiny apartment looking around at the cramped space she had called home for so many years. Everything was about to change, and for the first time in a very long time, change didn't feel like something to fear. The next morning, Denise went back to the Ashford estate. Not to clean, not to work, but to hold Marcus while Victoria met with her lawyers. To sit in the garden and sing Spanish lullabies to a baby who had survived the impossible. Claire found her there under an old oak tree, Marcus sleeping in her arms. "I heard what happened," Claire said. "After I called you, the police told me you went in alone. I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," as Claire sat down beside her. "You chose to be brave. That's not nothing." "So did you. Without your call, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have gotten there in time." Claire was quiet for a moment. "I was scared. I'm still scared. But you were right. I couldn't live with myself if something had happened to that baby and I hadn't done anything to stop it." "How's your mother?" "Better? Victoria offered to cover her medical bills." Claire shook her head in disbelief. "All of them, present and future. She said it was because I helped save her son." "That sounds like Victoria." "Is it true what people are saying, that she offered you millions, that she asked you to stay?" Denise looked down at Marcus, at his peaceful face, at the small miracle of his existence. "It's true." "Are you going to accept?" Denise thought about Maya, about the future, about the life she had always dreamed of, but never dared to believe was possible. "Yes," she said quietly. "I think I am." Claire smiled. "Good. This family needs someone like you. Someone who sees the truth. Someone who doesn't look away." They sat together in the garden, two black women who had spent their lives being invisible, finally being seen. And somewhere in the house behind them, the wheels of justice continued to turn, slowly grinding toward the day when Bradley and Stephanie would face the consequences of their choices. But that day was still to come. For now, there was only this: the sun on her face, the baby in her arms, the promise of tomorrow. And for Denise Williams, the woman who had been invisible for 42 years, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 3 weeks passed like water through a cracked dam, fast and relentless and impossible to stop. The news spread across Connecticut, then across the country, then across the world. The Ashford case became headline news on every major network. Attempted murder, conspiracy, a billionaire family torn apart by greed. And at the center of it all, a story that captured everyone's imagination, the black maid who saved the baby. Denise tried to avoid the cameras. She refused interview requests from CNN, Fox News, NBC, all of them. She didn't want fame. She didn't want attention. She just wanted to hold Marcus and help Victoria prepare for the trial that would determine whether justice would actually be served. But the world wouldn't let her stay invisible anymore. November 28th, 9:00 a.m. The preliminary hearing was held at the Greenwich Superior Court. Denise sat in the gallery behind Victoria, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles had gone white. Marcus was with Claire at the estate, surrounded by security guards and the new monitoring system Victoria had installed. Bradley Ashford was brought in first. He wore a gray suit, his hair neatly combed, his face composed. He looked like a businessman attending a board meeting, not a man accused of trying to murder his infant nephew. His eyes found Denise in the crowd. The hatred in them was pure and cold, a promise of vengeance that made her blood run cold. "Don't look at him," Victoria whispered. "Don't give him the satisfaction." Denise looked away. Stephanie came next, escorted by 2 officers. She had lost weight in the weeks since her arrest. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a prison jumpsuit, her perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked smaller, somehow diminished. But when she saw Denise, something ugly flashed across her face. A snarl that was there and gone in a second, hidden behind a mask of wounded innocence. The judge called the proceedings to order. 9:47 a.m. The prosecution laid out their case with surgical precision. The toxicology report showing midazolam in Marcus's system. The recordings Denise had made, the photographs from her hidden cameras, the testimony from Sophie, who had turned state's witness in exchange for a reduced sentence. But it was the financial records that proved most damning. Bank transfers from Bradley to the man who had been hired to kidnap Marcus. Payments to Sophie stretching back months. A paper trail that connected every piece of the conspiracy like dots on a map. "The evidence is overwhelming, the prosecutor said. The defendants planned and executed a systematic campaign to murder an infant child for financial gain. We are asking that they be held without bail pending trial." Bradley's lawyer stood up, a silver-haired man in a suit that cost more than most people's cars. "Your Honor, my client is a respected businessman with deep ties to this community. He poses no flight risk. We request that he be released on bail pending trial." The judge considered for a moment, then she looked at Bradley with eyes that held no sympathy. "Mr. Ashford, you are accused of attempting to murder a 3-month-old baby, your own nephew. The evidence presented today suggests a premeditated conspiracy that stretched over months, possibly years. She paused. Bail is denied. The defendant will be remanded to custody until trial. Bradley's composure cracked. His face went red. His hands clenched into fists. This is outrageous. I am Bradley Ashford. I will not be treated like a common criminal. You are a common criminal, Mr. Ashford. The only difference is you wore better suits while committing your crimes. The judge turned to the officers. Take him away. 10:15 a.m. Stephanie's bail hearing went similarly. Denied, remanded to custody. Her screams of protest echoed through the courtroom as she was dragged away. Victoria grabbed Denise's hand. It's happening. They're actually going to pay for what they did. The trial hasn't started yet, Denise said quietly. Anything can happen. But this is a start. This is justice beginning to work. Denise wanted to believe her. But she had lived too long as a black woman in America to fully trust the justice system. Rich people had ways of escaping consequences. Expensive lawyers, paid experts, juries that could be influenced by money and power. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. December 5th, 2:00 p.m. The discovery phase of the trial brought revelations that shook Denise to her core. Jonathan Ashford's death had not been an accident. The prosecution presented evidence that Bradley had tampered with Jonathan's car 3 days before the crash. Security footage from a parking garage showed Bradley under the vehicle for 17 minutes. A mechanic testified that the brake lines had been cut in a way designed to fail, gradually making the crash look like mechanical failure rather than sabotage. Victoria sat in the courtroom with tears streaming down her face as the evidence was presented. Jonathan hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered by his own brother. I knew, Victoria whispered to Denise during a recess. Somewhere deep down, I always knew something was wrong. Jonathan was so careful. He never drove recklessly. He always maintained his car perfectly, but I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't let myself believe it. How could you have known? How could anyone have known? Because Bradley hated him. He always hated him. Every family dinner, every holiday, every interaction was poisoned by Bradley's resentment. I saw it. I ignored it. I told myself it was just sibling rivalry. Victoria's voice broke. And now Jonathan is dead because I didn't speak up. Denise put her arm around Victoria's shoulders. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. Bradley killed Jonathan because Bradley is a murderer. You didn't cause that. You couldn't have prevented it. Then why does it feel like I failed him? Because you loved him. And when we love someone who dies, we always think there was something we could have done. Denise thought about her own husband, about the cancer that took him, about all the what-ifs that had haunted her for years. But we can't save everyone. We can only do our best with what we know at the time. Victoria leaned against her shoulder and cried. December 12th, 10:00 a.m. Sophie took the stand. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled. Reporters lined the walls, their notebooks ready, their cameras capturing every moment. Sophie looked different than Denise remembered. Smaller, fragile. The cold confidence she had projected as a nanny was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like regret. The prosecutor led her through the story from the beginning. How Bradley had approached her 2 years ago when she was still in Denmark, consumed by grief over her mother's suicide. How he had offered her money to infiltrate the Ashford household. How she had accepted because she wanted revenge against the family that had destroyed her own. And what were your instructions regarding baby Marcus? The prosecutor asked. Sophie's voice was barely above a whisper. I was supposed to make it look like an accident. Turn off the monitor. Give him the sedative. Let nature take its course. She paused. But I couldn't do it. Every time I looked at that baby, I saw my little brother. He died when I was 12. Pneumonia. He was the same age as Marcus. But you did administer the sedative. Yes, Bradley was furious that I kept hesitating. He said if I didn't do it, he would hurt my father. My father is still alive in Copenhagen. He's all I have left. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. So I did it. I gave Marcus the medicine, I turned off the monitor, and I prayed that someone would find him in time. The courtroom was silent. Did you pray that someone would find him, Mouse? The prosecutor asked quietly. Or did you hope no one would... Sophie looked down at her hands. I don't know. I honestly don't know anymore. 11:30 a.m. The defense attorney's cross-examination was brutal. Ms. Hansen, you've testified that you administered a potentially lethal sedative to an infant. Is that correct? Yes. And you've also testified that you did this under duress because Mr. Ashford threatened your father. Is that correct? Yes. But isn't it true that you had other options? You could have gone to the police. You could have warned Mrs. Ashford. You could have simply refused and accepted the consequences. Sophie's face crumpled. I was scared. I wasn't thinking clearly. Or perhaps you weren't as reluctant as you claim. Perhaps you wanted that baby dead just as much as my client did. After all, the Ashford family destroyed your family. Jonathan Ashford bought your father's company and left you with nothing. You had motive, you had opportunity, and you had years of built-up rage. Objection. The prosecutor was on her feet. Counsel is badgering the witness. I'm establishing state of mind, Your Honor. Overruled, but watch yourself, the counselor. The defense attorney turned back to Sophie. Isn't it true, Ms. Hanson, that you weren't a victim of Bradley Ashford, that you were his partner, that you were just as eager to see that baby dead as he was? Sophie broke down completely. Sobs racked her body. She couldn't speak, couldn't defend herself, could only sit there and cry while the defense attorney painted her as a monster. But Denise saw something else. She saw a young woman who had been consumed by grief and manipulated by a predator. She saw someone who had made terrible choices but wasn't beyond redemption. She saw herself in another life if circumstances had been different. Once under p.m. During the lunch recess, Denise found Sophie in a holding room waiting to be transported back to custody. The guards were reluctant to let her in, but Denise had learned something in the past few weeks. Victoria's name opened doors that had always been closed to her before. 5 minutes, the guard said. That's all. Denise sat down across from Sophie. The young woman looked up, her eyes red and swollen, her face ravaged by guilt. Why are you here? Sophie's voice was hoarse. To tell me I'm going to hell, to curse me for what I did to Marcus. No. Denise folded her hands on the table. I came to tell you that I understand. Sophie laughed bitterly. You understand. You, the hero who saved the day. You understand what it's like to want someone dead so badly it consumes your whole life. I understand what it's like to lose someone you love and have nowhere to put the pain. I understand what it's like to feel so powerless that you'll do anything to feel like you have some control. I understand grief that turns into rage, that turns into something you don't recognize anymore. Sophie stared at her. My mother hanged herself in our kitchen. I was the one who found her. I was 17 years old. I held my husband's hand when he died. I watched the light go out of his eyes. I was 30. My daughter was 4. The silence stretched between them. I wanted them to hurt, Sophie whispered. The way I hurt, the way my father hurts. I wanted them to know what it felt like to lose everything. I know. Does that make me evil? Denise considered the question carefully. It makes you human. Humans do terrible things when they're in pain, but it doesn't excuse what you did. It doesn't make it okay. Marcus almost died. An innocent baby who never hurt anyone. I know. Sophie's voice cracked. I see his face every time I close my eyes. I hear him crying in my sleep. I'll never forgive myself. Never. Good. Denise stood up. You shouldn't. But you can still do something with your life. You can still try to make some small piece of good out of all this pain. That's what I'm doing. That's what Victoria is doing. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's something. She knocked on the door. The guard opened it. One more thing, Sophie called out. The night they moved up the timeline. The night you came alone to save Marcus. How did you know? Denise turned back. Claire called me. She heard Bradley talking about it. Sophie nodded slowly. She's brave. Braver than me? Yes, Denise said. She is. She walked out without looking back. December 18th, 9:00 a.m. The trial proper began. The courtroom was filled to capacity every day. Media from around the world descended on Greenwich, turning the sleepy Connecticut town into a circus of cameras and reporters and true crime enthusiasts. Denise was called to testify on the third day. She walked to the witness stand with her head held high, but her heart was racing. She had never spoken in public before, never been the center of attention, never been seen by so many eyes at once. The prosecutor smiled reassuringly. Mrs. Williams, can you tell us in your own words what happened on the morning of November 14th? Denise took a breath, and she told them. She told them about the silence in the nursery, about finding Marcus not breathing, about the CPR her grandmother had taught her, about the monitor that had been deliberately turned off. She told them about Stephanie's threats, about the conversations she had overheard, about the evidence she had gathered piece by piece while pretending to be invisible. She told them about the night of the attack, about Claire's phone call, about racing to the mansion alone, about finding Stephanie with the syringe and fighting for Marcus's life. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. The prosecutor nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Williams. No further questions." 10:45 a.m., the defense attorney approached her like a shark circling wounded prey. "Mrs. Williams, you've testified that you gathered evidence against the defendants by secretly recording conversations and installing hidden cameras in their home. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And were you authorized to install those cameras?" "Did you have permission from the homeowners?" "I was authorized by Victoria Ashford. It was her home." "But not by Bradley Ashford, who also lived there, or Stephanie Ashford, who was a resident of the household." The prosecutor stood. "Objection. The defendants are accused of attempting to murder a child. The legality of the surveillance methods is a separate matter. Goes to credibility, Your Honor." "Overruled, but move along, counselor." The defense attorney smiled thinly. "Mrs. Williams, isn't it true that you had financial motivations for getting involved in this case, that Victoria Ashford has given you millions of dollars since the arrest of my clients?" Denise felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "Mrs. Ashford gave me that money after I saved her son's life. As a thank you. I wasn't expecting payment. I wasn't hoping for payment. I did what I did because a baby was in danger, and I couldn't stand by and watch him die. But you've benefited tremendously from these events. New wealth, fame, a position in the Ashford household. Some might say you had every reason to manufacture evidence, to exaggerate threats, to create a narrative that painted my clients in the worst possible light." "Some might say that." Denise met his eyes without flinching. "But they would be wrong. I have the recordings. I have the photographs. I have the testimony of Sophie Hansen, who confessed to everything. Your clients tried to murder a baby. I stopped them. That's the truth, no matter how you try to twist it." The defense attorney's smile faltered. "No further questions." December 22nd, 3:00 p.m. Victoria took the stand. She was composed at first, answering questions about her relationship with Bradley and Stephanie, about the days following Jonathan's death, about the warning signs she had missed. But when the prosecutor asked about Jonathan himself, Victoria broke down. "He was the love of my life," she said, her voice cracking. "He was kind and gentle, and he loved Marcus so much. He never even got to hold his son. He died 3 weeks before Marcus was born." Tears streamed down her face. "And now I know that his own brother murdered him, that Bradley took him from me, from his son, because he wanted money, because he was jealous, because he couldn't stand that Jonathan had everything he wanted." "Mrs. Ashford, do you need a moment?" "No." Victoria wiped her eyes. "No, I want to finish. I want everyone to hear this." She turned to face Bradley directly. "You killed my husband. You tried to kill my son. And for what money power was it worth it, Bradley? Was any of it worth it?" Bradley stared back at her, his face expressionless. "I loved your family," Victoria continued. "I trusted you. I welcomed you into my home after Jonathan died. I let you help with the company, with the household, with everything. And the whole time you were planning to destroy what was left of my life." "Mrs. Ashford, the judge said gently, "please address your comments to the court." Victoria turned away from Bradley, but her eyes were blazing. "I have nothing more to say except this. I hope they lock you away forever. I hope you spend every day of the rest of your life knowing that you failed, that Marcus is alive, that I'm alive, that everything you tried to steal is out of your reach, and I hope that knowledge burns." The courtroom was absolutely silent. December 28th, 11:00 a.m. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Denise sat with Victoria in a private room near the courtroom waiting. Marcus was in Victoria's arms, playing with a stuffed elephant, oblivious to the gravity of what was happening. "What if they don't convict?" Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "What if all of this was for nothing? Then we keep fighting. We appeal. We go to the media. We make sure the whole world knows what they did." Denise took her hand. "But they're going to convict. The evidence is overwhelming. The jury saw everything." "You can't know that." "No, but I have faith. Not in the system, in the people, in the 12 ordinary people who sat in that jury box and heard the truth." Denise paused. "Justice isn't guaranteed, but it's possible. And sometimes possible is enough." The door opened. A court officer stepped in. "The jury is back." 12:15 p.m. The courtroom fell silent as the jury filed in. 12 faces impossible to read. 12 ordinary people who held 2 lives in their hands. The judge turned to the jury foreman. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree against Bradley Ashford, how do you find? Guilty. Victoria gasped. Denise grabbed her hand. On the charge of murder in the first degree against Bradley Ashford and the death of Jonathan Ashford, how do you find? Wait. Guilty. Bradley's face went white. His lawyers slumped in their seats. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder against Bradley Ashford, how do you find? Guilty. The verdicts continued. Guilty on all counts for Bradley. Guilty on all counts for Stephanie. Conspiracy, attempted murder, accessory to murder. Every charge the prosecution had brought. When it was over, Bradley stood up suddenly, his face twisted with rage. This is a travesty. This is a witch hunt. That woman, he pointed at Denise, that cleaning lady destroyed my family. She planted evidence. She manipulated my sister-in-law. Mr. Ashford? The judge's voice was ice. You will be silent or you will be removed. I will not be silent. I am Bradley Ashford. I am... Two officers grabbed him, forcing him back into his seat. He struggled, cursing, screaming accusations until finally they dragged him out of the courtroom entirely. Stephanie sat motionless. As tears streaming down her face, all her composure finally shattered. The judge turned to the gallery. Sentencing will take place in 30 days. Court is adjourned. 12:45 p.m. Outside the courthouse, the media was waiting. Cameras, microphones, reporters shouting questions. Victoria stopped at the top of the steps, Marcus in her arms, Denise by her side. Mrs. Ashford, how do you feel about the verdict? Victoria looked at the crowd of reporters at the cameras, capturing her face at the world that was watching. Justice was served today, she said quietly. My husband's murderer and the people who tried to kill my son will spend the rest of their lives in prison. But this isn't a victory. There are no winners here. Jonathan is still dead. My son will grow up without knowing his father, and I will spend the rest of my life wondering how I could have been so blind to the evil in my own family. She paused, then turned to Denise. But I also want to say this. The reason my son is alive today, the reason I'm standing here at all, is because of this woman, Denise Williams. She saw what no one else saw. She fought when no one else would fight. She risked everything to protect a child who wasn't hers. Victoria's voice broke. She's the hero of this story. Not me, her. The cameras swung toward Denise. Mrs. Williams, do you have anything to say? Denise looked at the sea of faces, at the lights and microphones and expectant expressions. For 42 years she had been invisible. Now the whole world was looking at her. I'm not a hero, she said finally. I'm just a woman who couldn't walk away from a child in danger. Any mother would have done the same. Any grandmother. Any person with a heart. She paused. The real lesson here isn't about me. It's about seeing the people around you. Really seeing them. The person who cleans your house. The person who serves your food. The person you walk past every day without noticing. They have eyes. They have ears. They have hearts. And sometimes they're the only ones who can see the truth that everyone else is too blind to see. She took Victoria's arm. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a baby to take care of. They walked down the steps. Together past the cameras, past the reporters, past the crowds. Two women from completely different worlds bound together by love and one loss and the fierce determination to protect an innocent child. Behind them, the courthouse stood silent. Justice had been served. But the story wasn't over yet. January 15th, 8:00 a.m. Sentencing day. Bradley Ashford received life without parole for the murder of Jonathan Ashford and the attempted murder of Marcus Ashford. The judge called his crimes calculated, cold-blooded, and utterly devoid of human decency. Stephanie Ashford received 45 years with possibility of parole after 30. Her lawyer argued for leniency, citing her role as a follower rather than a leader. The judge disagreed. You held a syringe filled with poison over a sleeping infant, the judge said. You were seconds away from murdering a 3-month-old baby. There is no leniency for that. There is only justice. Sophie Hansen received 10 years reduced from the original charges in exchange for her testimony. She would be eligible for parole in 7. As she was led from the courtroom, Sophie caught Denise's eye. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not understanding, but something close to acknowledgement. They had both been broken by grief. They had both made choices that defined them. The only difference was the direction those choices had taken them. Sophie looked away first. Denise watched her go, wondering if redemption was possible for someone who had almost killed a child, wondering if it mattered. Some questions didn't have answers. January 20th, 2:00 p.m. Maya arrived in Connecticut. Denise waited at the airport, her heart pounding, her eyes scanning the crowd of travelers pouring through the gates. It had been 2 years since she had seen her daughter in person. 2 years of phone calls and video chats and missed birthdays and holidays spent alone. And then there she was, 16 years old, taller than Denise remembered, beautiful in a way that made Denise's heart ache. "Mama!" Maya ran across the terminal and threw herself into Denise's arms. They held each other, crying, laughing, not caring about the strangers watching. "I missed you so much," Maya sobbed. "I missed you every single day." "I missed you too, baby, every single day." They stood there for a long time, mother and daughter finally together after years of sacrifice and separation. "Mama," Maya said, finally pulling back to look at her. "You're famous now. Everyone at school was talking about you. My mama, the hero who saved the billionaire's baby." Denise laughed through her tears. "I'm not famous. I'm just your mama." "You're famous to me. You've always been famous to me." Maya grinned. "Now come on. I want to meet this baby you've been telling me about." 3:30 p.m. Victoria was waiting for them at the estate, Marcus in her arms. "You must be Maya." Victoria smiled warmly. "Your mother talks about you constantly. I feel like I already know you." Maya looked around at the mansion, at the wealth and elegance that surrounded her, at the life that was so different from anything she had ever known. "This is where you work now?" she asked Denise. "This is where I live now." Denise took her hand. "Where we live, both of us." Maya's eyes went wide. "What?" "I told you on the phone. Big news." Denise smiled. "Victoria offered us a home here, a real home. You'll have your own room, your own space, and you'll go to the best schools in Connecticut." "Mama, I can't." "We can't. We can, and we are." Denise squeezed her hand. "This is our second chance, baby. Our new beginning. After everything we've been through, we deserve this." Maya looked at Victoria, at Marcus, at the incredible home that was being offered to her. Then she burst into tears. "I always knew you'd change our lives, Mama. I always knew you were meant for something bigger than cleaning other people's houses." "I'll still be cleaning," Denise said with a laugh. "Old habits die hard, but now I'll be cleaning my own home." Victoria stepped forward and put Marcus in Maya's arms. The baby looked up at the strange new face, considered for a moment, then broke into a gummy smile. "He likes you," Victoria said. "He doesn't smile at just anyone." Maya looked down at Marcus, at the tiny life that her mother had risked everything to save. "Hey there, little man," she whispered. "I'm Maya. I'm going to be your big sister, sort of." Marcus gurgled happily and grabbed her finger, and in that moment, watching her daughter hold the baby she had saved Denise felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete. Finally, impossibly beautifully complete. January 25th, 6:00 p.m. Denise stood in her new room looking out at the Connecticut sunset. The room was bigger than her entire apartment in Bridgeport had been. The bed was softer than anything she had ever slept in. The closet was full of new clothes that Victoria had insisted on buying her. It still didn't feel real. A knock at the door. Maya poked her head in. "Dinner's ready. Victoria says we're having something called coq au vin. I don't know what that is, but it smells amazing." Denise laughed. "It's fancy chicken. You'll love it." Maya came in and sat on the bed. "Mama, can I ask you something? Anything, baby." "Do you ever feel weird about all this, living here, I mean? After everything that happened in this house?" Denise considered the question carefully. "Sometimes. Sometimes I walk past the nursery and I remember that night. Sometimes I see shadows in corners and my heart races. But then I look at Marcus and I look at you and I remember why I fought. Why it was worth it. You could have died. When you went in alone that night, they could have killed you." "I know. Why did you do it?" "Really, he wasn't your baby. This wasn't your family. You could have walked away and no one would have blamed you." Denise sat down next to her daughter and took her hand. "Do you remember what Grandma used to say about the responsibility of seeing?" Maya nodded slowly. "She said that when you see something wrong, you become responsible for it. That looking away doesn't make you innocent, it makes you complicit." "That's right. When I saw what was happening in this house, when I understood what they were planning, I became responsible. Walking away wasn't an option. Not for me. Not for the woman your grandmother raised me to be." Maya leaned her head against Denise's shoulder. "I want to be like you when I grow up." "No, baby. I want you to be better than me, stronger, braver. I want you to change the world in ways I never could." "I will." Maya lifted her head. "I've decided what I want to study in college. Law. I want to be a lawyer. I want to fight for people who can't fight for themselves." Denise felt tears prick her eyes. "Your daddy would be so proud of you." "He'd be proud of you too, Mama. He'd be so proud of everything you've done." They sat together in the fading light, mother and daughter, survivor and dreamer, looking out at a future that finally felt full of possibility. 8:00 p.m. Dinner was noisy and warm and full of laughter. Victoria told stories about Marcus's latest adventures in crawling. Maya talked about her friends back home and her plans for college. Claire stopped by with dessert and stayed for coffee. Denise sat at the head of the table, watching it all, feeling a warmth in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. This was family, not blood, not paperwork, but something deeper. Something forged in fire and fear and the desperate need to protect the innocent. After dinner, Victoria pulled Denise aside. "I have something for you." She handed over a small velvet box. Denise opened it. Inside was a key. Simple. Brass. Ordinary. "What's this?" "It's the key to the front door. Your front door. You're not a guest here, Denise. You're not an employee. You're family. And family comes and goes through the front door." Denise stared at the key, at the small brass symbol of everything that had changed. For 42 years, she had entered wealthy homes through back doors and service entrances. She had been invisible, unnoticed, overlooked. Now she had a key to the front door. Now she belonged. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Victoria hugged her tight. "Thank you for saving my son, for saving me, for being the person I needed when I didn't even know I needed someone." They held each other for a long moment. Then Marcus started crying in the other room, and they both laughed, and the moment broke and life continued. 11:30 p.m. That night, Denise stood in the nursery looking down at Marcus asleep in his crib. The monitor glowed green. The room was warm and safe and full of love. She thought about the night she had found him not breathing, about the terror and desperation and the miracle of his small heart starting again under her hands. She thought about everything that had happened since. The danger, the fear, the justice that had finally been served. She thought about Maya asleep down the hall in her new room, about the future that was opening up in front of them like a sunrise after a long, dark night. "You're going to be okay," she whispered to Marcus. "You're going to grow up strong and kind and brave, and whenever you wonder why, I'll tell you. I'll tell you about your daddy who loved you before you were even born, about your mama who fought for you with everything she had, about all the people who came together to make sure you had a chance." She touched his small hand. His fingers curled around hers even in sleep. "And I'll tell you about me, about the cleaning lady who refused to look away, who saw you when no one else did, who loved you from the moment she breathed life back into your lungs." She leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Sleep well, little man. I'll be here when you wake up. I'll always be here." She turned off the light and walked to the door. Behind her, the monitor glowed green, steady and strong, keeping watch through the night. And Denise Williams, the woman who had been invisible for 42 years, finally knew what it felt like to be seen. 6 months had passed since the verdict, and the world had moved on to other scandals, other tragedies, other stories that demanded attention. But for Denise Williams, time moved differently now. Each day brought new miracles she had never dared to dream about. Maya was enrolled at Greenwich Academy, one of the best private schools in Connecticut. Marcus was walking now, toddling through the mansion on unsteady legs, his dark eyes full of wonder at everything he discovered. And Denise herself had transformed from invisible maid to something she still couldn't quite name. June 15th, 7:00 a.m. Denise woke to the sound of Marcus crying down the hall. She was out of bed and moving before her eyes were fully open, a reflex that had become second nature. But when she reached the nursery, Victoria was already there, holding Marcus against her shoulder, humming softly. "Go back to bed," Victoria said with a tired smile. "I've got him." Force of habit, Denise leaned against the doorframe. "You know I can't sleep when he's upset." "I know. That's what makes you family." Victoria looked down at Marcus, who was already settling his cries, fading to whimpers. "He had a nightmare, I think. He kept saying, 'No, no, no.' Do babies even have nightmares?" "They do." Denise thought about all the research she had done in the months since everything happened. Especially babies who've experienced trauma. Even if they don't remember it consciously, their bodies remember. Victoria's face tightened with pain. He was 3 months old. He shouldn't have any trauma to remember. But he does, and all we can do is love him through it. Marcus lifted his head from Victoria's shoulder and reached for Denise. Dee Dee. And the name he had given her because he couldn't pronounce Denise. The name that meant she belonged to him as much as he belonged to her. Denise took him into her arms and held him close. "I'm here, little man. Dee Dee's here." 9:00 a.m. The letter arrived with the morning mail. Denise was in the kitchen feeding Marcus his breakfast when Claire walked in with a stack of envelopes. "This one's for you," Claire said, handing over a cream-colored envelope with no return address. Denise opened it with one hand while wiping oatmeal off Marcus's chin with the other. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in handwriting she didn't recognize. She read the first line and her blood turned to ice. "You think this is over? You think justice was served? This is only the beginning. Bradley has friends, powerful friends, friends who don't forget. Watch your back, cleaning lady. Watch your daughter's back. We're coming for everything you took from us." The letter was unsigned. Denise's hands started shaking. The paper trembled in her grip. "Denise?" Claire's voice was sharp with concern. "What is it? What's wrong?" Denise couldn't speak. She just handed over the letter. Claire read it. Her face went pale. "We need to call the police right now." "No," Denise's voice came out stronger than she expected. "No police, not yet. I need to think." "Think about what? This is a death threat. They're threatening Maya." "I know what it is." Denise took Marcus from his high chair and held him against her chest. "But if we go to the police, whoever sent this will know. They'll know we're scared. They'll know they got to us." "So what? Let them know. Let them see that we're taking this seriously." "That's not how this works." Denise's mind was racing. "Bradley's in prison, but whoever wrote this is still free. If we make noise, if we look scared, they'll know their threats are working. They'll keep pushing. They'll get bolder." Claire stared at her. "So what do we do?" Denise looked down at Marcus, at his innocent face, at the trust in his eyes. "We find out who sent it, and we make sure they can't hurt anyone." 10:30 a.m. Victoria came home from her morning meetings to find Denise pacing in the living room, Marcus playing on the floor, and Claire standing by the window looking terrified. "What happened?" Victoria's voice was sharp. "Something's wrong. I can see it in your faces." Denise handed her the letter. Victoria read it twice. Her expression cycled through shock, fear, and finally settled on cold fury. "This is from the Ashfords. It has to be. Bradley's parents, his extended family. They've been making noise since the trial, talking to reporters claiming Bradley was framed." "I know. They have money. They have connections. If they were behind this, then we need to find out for sure." Denise stopped pacing. "I spent 7 months being invisible in this house, watching people who thought I couldn't see anything. I can do it again. I can find out who's threatening us." "How?" "Bradley's parents, Harold and Margaret Ashford, they still live in their estate in Old Greenwich. They've been the most vocal about Bradley's innocence, the most aggressive in their public statements." Victoria nodded slowly. "You think they sent the letter?" "I think they know who did. And I think they've been coordinating something since the trial ended." "What are you suggesting?" Denise met her eyes. "I'm suggesting we get ahead of them, before they can hurt Maya, before they can hurt Marcus, before they can hurt any of us." 11:45 a.m. An hour later, Denise was in Victoria's car heading toward Old Greenwich. She had left Marcus with Claire and Maya surrounded by the security team Victoria had hired after the trial. They would be safe, at least for now. Her phone buzzed, a text from Maya. "Mama, what's going on? Claire looks scared and won't tell me anything." Denise typed back quickly. "Everything's fine, baby. Just some business I need to handle. Stay inside. I'll be home soon." "You're lying. I can tell when you're lying, even in text." Denise smiled despite herself. Maya was too smart for her own good. "I promise I'll explain everything tonight. Just trust me." "I always trust you. Be careful." "I will." She put the phone down and focused on the road ahead. 12:30 p.m. The Ashford family estate was smaller than Victoria's mansion, but still worth more than Denise would earn in 10 lifetimes. She parked on the street half a block away and watched. For 2 hours she watched. She saw Margaret Ashford leave at 1:15 p.m. climbing into a silver Mercedes driving toward town. She saw a maid taking out trash at 2:00 p.m. She saw a gardener trimming hedges at 2:30 p.m. And at 3:00 p.m. she saw something that made her heart stop. A man leaving through the back gate. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Face she would never forget. The same man who had been in the nursery that night. The same man who had been holding Marcus when Denise burst through the door. The same man who had been arrested, tried, and convicted of kidnapping. But here he was, walking free. Denise grabbed her phone and took pictures, her hands shaking. Click, click, click. The man got into a black SUV and drove away. Denise sat in the car, her mind reeling. How is this possible? He had been convicted. He had been sentenced. He should be in prison, unless someone had pulled strings, unless someone with money and power had found a way to get him out. 3:45 p.m. She called Detective Marcus Thompson. "Denise, what's wrong?" "Thomas Reed, the man who tried to kidnap Marcus. Where is he right now?" There was a pause. "He should be at the State Correctional Facility in Cheshire." "Why?" "Because I just saw him someone leaving the Ashford estate in Old Greenwich, walking free, getting into a car and driving away." Silence. "That's not possible." "I have photographs. I'm looking at them right now. It's him. I'm sure of it." More silence, then Marcus Thompson's voice tight with anger. "Stay where you are. Don't approach anyone. Don't do anything. I'm making some calls right now." The line went dead. Denise sat in her car staring at the photographs on her phone. Thomas Reed's face clear as day. The Ashford estate in the background. Someone had let him out. Someone with enough power to bypass the justice system. Someone who wanted him free for a reason, and Denise was terrified she knew what that reason was. 5:00 p.m. Marcus Thompson called back. "You were right." His voice was grim. "Thomas Reed was released 3 days ago. Early release for good behavior. Approved by a judge in Hartford." "That's impossible. He was convicted of kidnapping. He was supposed to serve 15 years. Apparently strings were pulled. The judge who approved the release has connections to the Ashford family. Old connections. Debt that goes back decades. So they bought his freedom?" "Looks like it." Denise closed her eyes. "He's coming for us. That's why they got him out. That's what the letter meant." "We don't know that for sure." "Yes, we do. You know it. I know it. They're not going to stop until they finish what they started." Marcus Thompson was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do?" "I want to protect my daughter. I want to protect Marcus. I want to stop these people before they can hurt anyone else." "How?" "I need your help. I need you to find out where Thomas Reed is staying. I need you to find out who's paying him. And I need you to help me end this once and for all." Another pause. "Denise, what you're asking?" "I know what I'm asking. I'm asking you to trust me the way you trusted me before. I'm asking you to help me the way you helped me before. And I'm asking you to believe that I can do this." The silence stretched for an eternity. "Okay," Marcus Thompson finally said. "Okay, let me see what I can find out." 7:00 p.m. Denise was back at the estate sitting in the living room with Victoria, Maya, and Claire. The security team had been doubled. Every door was locked. Every window monitored. But none of that made Denise feel safe. "We should leave," Maya said. She was trying to sound brave, but Denise could hear the fear underneath. "Go somewhere they can't find us." "Running doesn't work," Victoria replied. "Not with people like this. They have resources. They have connections. They'd find us eventually." "So what do? Just wait for them to come?" "No." Denise stood up. "We don't wait. We act. We've been reacting since this started. Reacting to Bradley's plot. Reacting to the trial. Reacting to every threat they throw at us." She paused. "It's time to stop reacting. It's time to make them react to us." "How?" Victoria asked. "I have a plan, but I need everyone to trust me. Can you do that?" Victoria looked at her for a long moment, then she nodded. "After everything you've done for this family, yes, I trust you completely." Maya stood up and took her mother's hand. "I trust you too, Mama, whatever you need." Claire stepped forward. "Count me in." Denise looked at the 3 women standing with her. 3 allies. 3 people who had found each other through tragedy and emerged as family. "Okay," she said. "Here's what we're going to do." June 17th, 9:00 a.m. 2 days later, Denise put her plan into motion. Victoria called a press conference. Every major news outlet in Connecticut was invited. The story was too good to resist the Ashford case 6 months later. Updates on the family, the ongoing threat from Bradley's supporters. By 10:00 a.m., reporters were gathered outside the estate cameras, ready microphones positioned. Victoria stepped out to address them, Marcus in her arms. "Thank you all for coming. I have a statement to make regarding recent threats against my family." Inside the house, Denise watched on a monitor. This was the first part of the plan. Make noise. Draw attention. Force the people threatening them to show themselves. "Over the past week, my family has received multiple death threats from individuals associated with Bradley Ashford's supporters. These threats have targeted not only myself and my son, but also Denise Williams, the woman who saved Marcus's life, and her daughter Maya." The reporters erupted with questions. "Mrs. Ashford, can you identify the source of these threats?" We have evidence suggesting involvement by members of the extended Ashford family, including Bradley's parents, Harold and Margaret Ashford. Are you accusing them of a crime? I'm stating facts. A convicted kidnapper named Thomas Reed, who participated in the attempt on my son's life, was released from prison 3 days ago. He was spotted at the Ashford family estate in Old Greenwich yesterday afternoon. The circumstances of his release are currently under investigation by state authorities. The press conference exploded. 10:30 a.m. Inside the house, Denise watched the chaos unfold. The reporters were in a frenzy. Phone calls were being made. The story was spreading. Phase 1 complete, Claire said. The whole world knows what's happening now. Good. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. At 11:15 a.m., Harold Ashford's lawyer called Victoria. He was furious, threatening lawsuits, demanding retractions, insisting that Victoria had defamed his clients. Victoria put him on speakerphone so Denise could hear. Mrs. Ashford, you have made extremely serious allegations against the Ashford family. Allegations that are completely false and potentially actionable. Are they false? Victoria's voice was calm. Thomas Reed was at your client's estate. We have photographs. His early release was approved by a judge with known connections to your clients. We have documentation. That proves nothing. It proves enough. And it's going to keep proving more. The state attorney general has opened an investigation. The FBI is looking into potential witness tampering. This is about to become the biggest story in Connecticut, and your clients are at the center of it. Silence on the other end of the line. What do you want? The lawyer finally asked. I want the threats to stop. I want Thomas Reed returned to custody, and I want Harold and Margaret Ashford to publicly apologize for their attempts to intimidate my family. That will never happen. Then enjoy the investigation, and the media attention, and the destruction of whatever reputation the Ashford name still has. Victoria hung up. Denise stared at her. That was incredible. I learned from the best. Victoria smiled. Now we see if they take the bait. 1:00 p.m. They took the bait. At precisely 100 p.m., Harold Ashford himself called Victoria's phone, not through a lawyer, not through an intermediary, the patriarch of the Ashford family calling directly. Mrs. Ashford, his voice was cold, controlled. I think we need to talk. I agree. Not over the phone. In person. Tonight. My estate. 8 o'clock. Fine, but I'm bringing Denise Williams with me. A pause. The cleaning lady. The woman who saved my son's life and exposed your son's crimes. Yes, her. Another pause. Longer this time. Fine, 8 o'clock. Both of you. The line went dead. Denise and Victoria looked at each other. This could be a trap, Denise said. I know. He could be planning to hurt us, to make us disappear. I know. We're walking into the lion's den with no guarantee we'll walk out. I know. Victoria's jaw was set. But this is the only way to end it. Face to face, once and for all. Denise nodded slowly. Then we'd better be prepared for anything. 8:00 p.m. The Ashford estate was lit up like a Christmas tree when they arrived. Security guards at the gate, cars lining the driveway. Whatever was about to happen, Harold Ashford wanted witnesses. Denise and Victoria were escorted into the main house by a servant who didn't make eye contact. They were led to a formal sitting room where Harold and Margaret Ashford were waiting. Harold was 72 years old, but he still radiated power. Silver hair, sharp eyes, a face that had commanded boardrooms and courtrooms and family empires for half a century. Margaret sat beside him, elegant and cold, her expression unreadable. Please sit down. Harold gestured to 2 chairs across from them. Victoria sat. Denise remained standing. I prefer to stand. Harold's eyes flickered with something that might have been respect, or contempt. It was hard to tell. Very well. He steepled his fingers. You've caused a great deal of trouble for my family, Mrs. Williams. Your family caused trouble for themselves. I just made sure the world knew about it. My son is in prison. My daughter-in-law is in prison. My family's name has been dragged through the mud, and you are responsible for all of it. No, Denise's voice was steady. Bradley is responsible. Stephanie is responsible. They tried to murder an innocent child. I stopped them. If you're looking for someone to blame, look at them. They were protecting the family legacy. They were trying to steal money that wasn't theirs by killing a baby. That's not protection. That's evil. Margaret spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but carried an edge of venom. You're just a cleaning lady. You have no right to judge this family. I have every right. Denise took a step forward. I held that baby when he wasn't breathing. I felt his heart stop under my hands. I breathed life back into him while your precious family was trying to let him die. Don't you dare tell me what rights I have. The room went silent. Harold leaned forward. What do you want, Mrs. Williams? What will it take to make this go away? I already told your lawyer. I want the threats to stop. I want Thomas Reed back in prison. And I want an apology. Impossible. Then this conversation is over. Denise turned toward the door. Wait. Harold's voice was sharp. There's something you should know before you leave. Something that changes everything. Denise stopped, turned back. What? Harold's smile was thin and cold. Jonathan Ashford, the golden boy, the beloved older son, Victoria's sainted husband. He paused. He wasn't the hero everyone thinks he was. Victoria stiffened. What are you talking about, Thorpe? I'm talking about the truth. The truth that Bradley knew. The truth that drove him to do what he did. Harold pulled a folder from beside his chair and tossed it on the coffee table. Jonathan Ashford wasn't just a businessman, he was a monster, and this is the proof. 8:45 p.m. Denise picked up the folder. Inside were documents, photographs, financial records. She flipped through them, her stomach dropping with every page. Illegal business practices, bribery, fraud, companies destroyed families, ruined lives shattered. All connected to Jonathan Ashford, all hidden behind layers of corporations and shell companies. Jonathan built his empire on blood, Harold said. He destroyed his competitors. He bankrupted innocent people. He drove at least 3 business owners to suicide, including Sophie Hanson's mother. Victoria grabbed the folder from Denise's hands. This is a lie. This is fabricated. It's documented. It's verified. It's the truth. Harold's voice was almost gentle. Your husband was a criminal, Victoria, and Bradley knew. He knew, and he tried to stop it. He tried to take the company away from Jonathan to put it in hands that wouldn't continue the destruction, but Jonathan wouldn't listen. So Bradley took more extreme measures. He killed him. Denise's voice was flat. You're trying to justify murder. I'm trying to explain context. Jonathan destroyed dozens of lives. Bradley was trying to prevent more destruction. Does that make what he did right? No, but it makes it understandable. And Marcus, Victoria's voice shook with rage, what context justifies trying to murder a 3-month-old baby? Harold's face flickered. For just a moment, the mask slipped and something like shame appeared underneath. That went too far. Bradley was desperate. He wasn't thinking clearly. The plan was only supposed to what? Denise cut him off. To only mostly kill a baby, to only traumatize him forever. There's no excuse. There's no justification. Bradley and Stephanie tried to murder an innocent child, and you're sitting here trying to make us feel sorry for them. I'm trying to make you understand that this family has suffered enough, that continuing this vendetta serves no one. Vendetta, Denise laughed bitterly. You sent death threats. You got a convicted kidnapper released from prison. You hired him to come after us. And you call that our vendetta? Harold's expression hardened. I did no such thing. Then who did? Silence. And then Margaret spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I did. 9:00 p.m. Every head in the room turned toward Margaret Ashford. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her face composed, but her eyes were wild, desperate. Bradley is my son, my firstborn, my baby. Her voice cracked. I would do anything to protect him, anything to bring him home. Margaret, Harold's voice was sharp with warning. Don't. No, I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of lawyers and strategies and careful words. Margaret stood up, facing Denise directly. I arranged for Thomas Reed's release. I paid the judge. I told Thomas to frighten you, to make you back off, to make you all understand that hurting my family has consequences. Margaret, stop talking. I won't stop. I can't stop. Margaret's composure finally shattered. Tears streamed down her face. You took my son away from me. You turned the whole world against him. Do you have any idea what that's like, watching your child destroyed while you can do nothing? Your son tried to murder a baby. Denise's voice was cold. He deserves to be in prison. He's still my son. No matter what he did, he's still my son, and I will fight for him until my last breath. The room was electric with tension. Harold had gone pale. Victoria was trembling with barely contained fury. And Denise understood. She thought about Maya, about all the things she had done to protect her daughter, the sacrifices, the risks, the choices that no one else could understand. Margaret Ashford was evil. She had threatened innocent people. She had conspired to intimidate a family that had already suffered too much. But underneath all of that, she was a mother whose child had been taken away, a mother who was watching her family crumble. Denise understood that pain even as she hated what it had driven Margaret to do. "Turn yourself in," Denise said quietly. Margaret stared at her. "What? You just confessed to bribery, intimidation, and conspiracy. The police are going to find out eventually. The investigation is already underway. But if you turn yourself in now, if you cooperate fully, maybe it goes easier for you. You want me to go to prison too, to abandon Harold, to leave this family with nothing. I want this to end. I want my daughter to be safe. I want Marcus to grow up without looking over his shoulder." Denise paused. "And I want you to have a chance at redemption. Real redemption, not the kind you buy with money and lawyers." Margaret was silent for a long moment. The tears kept falling, but something in her eyes was changing. Something that looked almost like relief. "If I turn myself in, will you drop the public campaign against the family? Will you let Harold live out his days in peace?" "Margaret," Harold snapped, "don't be absurd." "Quiet," Margaret's voice was steel. "I'm trying to save what's left of us." She looked at Victoria. "Well, do we have a deal?" Victoria glanced at Denise. Denise nodded slightly. "We have a deal," Victoria said. "But if anyone from this family threatens us again, if Thomas Reed comes anywhere near my son or Denise's daughter, the deal is off. Everything comes out. Everything." "Agreed." Margaret straightened her shoulders. "I'll call my lawyer tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll turn myself in." Harold slumped in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 72 years. The fight had gone out of him. The empire he had built was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Denise and Victoria walked out of the Ashford estate into the cool night air. "Is it over?" Victoria asked. Denise thought about Margaret's face, about the pain and desperation and strange, twisted love that had driven her to such terrible choices. "It's over," she said. "Finally, it's over." June 20th, 10:00 a.m. Margaret Ashford turned herself into police just as she had promised. The charges were serious bribery, conspiracy, witness intimidation, but her cooperation earned her some leniency. 24 months in a minimum security facility. Probation after that. Thomas Reed was arrested the same day, found at a motel in Bridgeport waiting for instructions that would never come. His early release was revoked. He went back to prison this time for good. Harold Ashford retreated from public life. The family empire, already weakened by the scandal, began to crumble. Within a year, it would be sold off piece by piece, the name Ashford becoming just another cautionary tale about wealth and corruption. But Denise didn't think about any of that. Not then. What she thought about was Marcus taking his first steps across the living room. Victoria laughing as he tumbled into her arms. Maya studying at the kitchen table, her books spread out around her, her future stretching ahead like an open road. This was what she had fought for. This was what all the danger and fear and sacrifice had been about. Family, love. The chance to build something beautiful out of the ashes of something terrible. July 4th, 7:00 p.m., Independence Day. Victoria threw a party at the estate. Nothing fancy, just family and close friends. Claire was there with her mother, whose medical bills were now fully covered by Victoria's foundation. Marcus Thompson came with his wife, both of them marveling at how much Marcus had grown. Even Detective Rodriguez stopped by bringing fireworks for Maya and admitting with a gruff smile that Denise was the bravest civilian she had ever worked with. As the sun set and the fireworks began to light up the sky, Denise stood apart from the crowd watching. Maya found her there. "Mama, you okay?" "I'm perfect, baby. I'm absolutely perfect." "You're crying." Denise wiped her eyes. "Happy tears, the best kind." Maya leaned against her shoulder. "This time last year, I was in Georgia, worried about money, worried about college, worried about whether I'd ever see you for more than a week at a time." "I know." "And now, this incredible house, this amazing family, this life that I never could have imagined." Life is funny that way. Denise put her arm around her daughter. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes you have to walk through fire to find paradise. That's very philosophical. Your grandma used to say it. I'm just borrowing her wisdom. They stood together watching the fireworks explode across the Connecticut sky. Red, white, blue, colors of freedom, colors of hope. Mama? Maya's voice was soft. Yes, baby. Thank you for everything, for fighting when it would have been easier to give up, for believing that things could get better, for showing me what courage really looks like. Denise pulled her daughter closer. You're welcome, baby, but you know what? You're the reason I fought. You're the reason I didn't give up. Everything I did for you. And for Marcus? And for Marcus. Denise smiled. But mostly for you, always for you. The final firework exploded overhead, a cascade of gold and silver that lit up the entire sky. And Denise Williams, the woman who had been invisible for 42 years, felt finally completely, utterly seen. 1 year later. June 15th, 2:00 p.m. Maya graduated from Greenwich Academy at the top of her class. Denise sat in the audience surrounded by Victoria and Claire and little Marcus, who squirmed in her lap and kept asking when the boring talking would be over. She watched her daughter walk across the stage, accept her diploma, and flash a smile at the crowd that was pure radiant joy. That's my baby, Denise whispered. That's my baby girl. After the ceremony, Maya found her in the crowd. I got into Columbia, Mama, full scholarship, pre-law just like I wanted. Denise grabbed her and held her so tight she thought she might never let go. I'm so proud of you, so proud. I learned from the best. Maya pulled back and looked at her mother with eyes that were wise beyond her years. You showed me that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what people think you are. What matters is what you're willing to fight for. And what are you willing to fight for? Maya smiled. Everything. Just like you. September 1st, 9:00 a.m. Denise drove Maya to Columbia University in New York City. They arrived at the dorms surrounded by other parents helping their children move and other families beginning new chapters. Unloading the car took an hour. Setting up Maya's room took another 2, and then finally, there was nothing left to do. This is it, Maya said. This is really it. This is really it. Denise looked around the tiny dorm room that would be her daughter's home for the next 4 years. You're going to do amazing things, baby. I know it. Will you be okay without me? Denise laughed. I have Victoria, I have Marcus, I have Claire. I have a whole family waiting for me back in Connecticut. I'll be more than okay. But I'm your baby. You'll always be my baby. No matter how far away you go, no matter how successful you become, no matter how many years pass, you will always, always be my baby. They hugged. Long and hard and full of all the words neither of them could say. And then Denise walked out of that dorm room, got in her car, and drove back to Connecticut, crying the whole way, but smiling through the tears. Her baby was grown. Her baby was launched. Her baby was going to change the world. And Denise had done her job. December 25th, 8:00 a.m. Christmas morning at the Ashford estate. Marcus was 2 years old now, running around the living room in his pajamas, tearing open presents with the boundless energy of a toddler on Christmas morning. Maya was home from college looking more grown up than ever, but still willing to get on the floor and play with Marcus and his new toys. Victoria sat on the couch watching them with a smile that reached all the way to her eyes. She was different now, stronger, more present. The grief that had consumed her was still there, would always be there, but it no longer owned her. And Denise stood in the doorway, a cup of coffee in her hands, watching everything she loved gathered in one room. You're doing that thing again, Claire said, appearing beside her, standing apart, watching. Old habits. You're not invisible anymore, you know. You haven't been invisible for a long time. Denise smiled. I know, but sometimes I still like to watch, to remember, to appreciate how far we've come. And how far is that? Denise thought about it. Thought about the woman she had been 2 years ago, cleaning toilets and sending money home, invisible and powerless and afraid. Thought about the woman she was now, loved, secure, surrounded by family that she had chosen and that had chosen her back. Far enough, she said. Far enough that I finally know what home feels like. Marcus ran over and grabbed her leg. Dee Dee, present for Dee Dee. He was holding a small box wrapped in bright red paper, his face shining with excitement. Denise knelt down and took the box. What's this little man? Open. She unwrapped it carefully, aware of everyone watching, aware of the weight of the moment. Inside was a photograph in a simple frame. The whole family gathered on the front steps of the estate. Victoria holding Marcus. Maya laughing at something off camera. Claire and Denise standing side by side. And at the bottom of the frame, engraved in gold letters, the Williams Ashford family, bound by love, stronger together. Denise felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Do you like it, Dee Dee?" Marcus was bouncing with anticipation. "Do you like it?" "I love it, little man." She scooped him up and held him close. "I love it so much." Victoria stood and walked over. She put her hand on Denise's shoulder. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. "For everything. For saving my son. For saving me. For becoming the family I didn't know I needed. Thank you for seeing me, when no one else did." They stood together, the whole family, on that Christmas morning. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, covering the Connecticut hills in white. Inside, there was warmth and laughter, and the particular magic that comes from people who have found each other against all odds. And Denise Williams, who had started this journey as an invisible maid in a mansion full of secrets, finally knew who she was. She was a mother, a protector, a fighter, a survivor. She was seen. She was loved. She was home. And that was the most powerful truth of all. Because in the end, this story was never about wealth or poverty, about power or powerlessness. It was about the simple, profound truth that every person matters. That the woman mopping your floors might be the one to save your life. That courage doesn't require status or education or money. It just requires a heart willing to do what's right even when it costs everything. Denise Williams had that heart, and because of her, a baby lived, a family survived, and justice was served. The world will always need people like Denise. People who see the truth that others miss. People who act when others look away. People who refuse to be invisible even when the world tells them they should be. Be that person. See the people around you. Really see them. And when the moment comes when you have the chance to stand up for what's right, take it. Because sometimes one person can change everything. One voice can break the silence. One heart can save the world. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you are not invisible. You matter, and you have the power to make a difference.